Hello everyone, welcome to What If Deku was rejected by Uraraka and fell in love with Momo Yaoyorozu Part 2. Before we start, please go support cismomusic for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Deku is a male. Chapter 25, Forgive Me. All Might, in these 19 days it is impossible to remember. If this happens when we sleep, then it will be impossible. Melissa, I know that, Uncle Might. We are very sorry about what is happening. All Might, Director, and what do we do now? Niza would look at All Might saying, We can't do anything. I guess this is the end of the road. If you want, we can tell this information to his friends, well, to those who still remember him. Aizawa, but there are only 6 people. Nizu, it doesn't matter, it's better to tell them. After all, they were always with him. Aizawa, I'll bring them to the office right away. Niza would just nod. All Might would be somewhat sad because no matter what he did, sooner or later he would forget his successor. After a few minutes the boys would be gathered in Niza's office. Momo somewhat sadly would say, Have you found a way to bring him back yet? A silence fell over the room. Momo understood that silence was her answer. Nizu, we're sorry, but we couldn't find any way to bring him back. You better prepare for what Dr. David will tell you. David took a deep breath and with a sad look he told them everything. When he finished telling the boys, he could see that they had tears on their cheeks. Momo, and no, this can't be true. I don't want to forget him. Momo couldn't hold back and left the room crying. Mina would follow her. Nijire would just have her head down. Now she understood why Mirio and Tamaki had forgotten about Izuku, why little by little the memories she had with him became blurry. Kendo would just be crying. She couldn't hold it any longer and burst into tears. Knowing that she would lose and forget her friend was a hard blow for her. All Might was sad as the boys were. Bakugo just left the address without saying anything. Kirishima went after him. He caught up with him in the hallways. Aizawa would say in a low voice, I'm sorry, Yaoyorozu. I broke my promise. Kirishima would tap Kaken's shoulders saying, If you need to vent, I'm here to listen to you, friend. Kaken, I just want to be alone for now. He went to his room. Upon entering it, he sat against the door as tears fell from his eyes. Kaken, if I had stopped him that night he would be here. Why the buck am I so useless? Why can't I help him even once? The blonde just sat there with her head down. Momo would be crying in her room. Mina was next to her, hugging her. The pink-haired girl was also crying non-stop. Well, the green-haired boy was a great friend for her. She had shared several fun moments with him. 5 days had passed. Niza and Aizawa along with David and Melissa and All Might no longer remembered Izuku. Nijire had also forgotten him. Kendo had lost part of his memories along with him. Mina and Kirishima were slowly losing their memories with Izuku. Now the boys were alone in this. Since they were the only ones who remembered it, they were the only ones who could see the sphere. The teachers, not remembering anything, summarized their lives normally as well as classes at the UA. Momo and Bakugo were quite affected since David had told them all that. Bakugo hadn't talked to any of his friends. Kirishima and Mina, like Momo, tried to talk to him, but the blonde avoided them. One day Kaken was leaving the campus with a sad look. Momo stopped him and asked him why he avoided them. Kaken walked past ignoring Momo. But she stopped him and asked, What the hell is wrong with you? Kaken just turned around and said, Do you really want to know? Fine. How the buck do you think I feel? I'm fighting every damn day to keep from forgetting my best friend. The blonde was screaming as tears fell from her eyes. Kaken, how am I supposed to act, huh? I'm scared every time I go to sleep. I'm scared to close my eyes knowing that it might be the last time I remember my friend. Why did it all have to end like this? I couldn't help him even once, not one damn time. He was always with me. He saved my life. Even though I treated him badly in the past, he has never left me alone even for a moment. I feel like garbage for not being able to bring him back myself. All I can do now is enjoy the memories I have with him. And yes, I want to go and blow up the damn sphere to bring him back. But I don't want to do something wrong and forget about it completely. I don't want to. If it weren't for him, I would never have met you. At that, Kaken felt the brunette hug him. She was also crying inconsolably. Momo, and how do you think I feel? I don't want to forget the person I love the most either. I want him to come back and kiss me like that time. Just like you, I'm also afraid. Kaken reciprocated his friend's hug. They stayed like that for a couple of minutes, then they separated. Kaken opened his eyes wide, he said. I have an idea so I don't forget Izuku. Momo, what's your idea? Kaken, come with me. He pulled her by the arm and they headed towards the dorms. Kaken told Momo to gather Mina, Kirishima, and Kendo. These were in Kaken's room. Mina, what's going on? Kaken, I have an idea so I don't forget Izuku. Kendo, and what is it? Kaken showed them a blank notebook. Kirishima, dude, what's that for? Kaken, we have to write down everything we experienced with Izuku and read it every day, so we won't forget it. Mina with a smile would say. It's a good idea. Kaken, don't waste time and go write down everything you remember. The boys now had a little more hope. Each one left the room to start writing in their notebooks. Momo wrote in detail the beautiful moments she had lived with Izuku, while some tears fell from her cheeks. On the other hand, Kaken had a sad look, saying, I guess it will work, or at least I want to believe so. Maybe wherever you are, maybe you're better off there, right, friend? I can't blame you for leaving, you carry too many things by yourself, but you still kept smiling, but you were a little selfish this time, you didn't think about your friends. Forgive me if I forget you, but thanks for everything, Deku. The hours had passed, and it was already night. We can see a very beautiful girl, who was sitting on a grassy field on a small hill, looking at the large sphere in the distance. This would say, why are all the people acting like nothing is happening? Can't they see the sphere? I couldn't ask you if you still remembered the promise you made me. Izuku, you're going to come back, right? You have to. She would just stare at the sky, looking at the beautiful stars. Although I think you forgot her, it's been a while since we met. 5 more days had passed. It was already day 15 since Izuku disappeared. Mina, Kirishima, and Kendo had lost all memory of Izuku. The only ones missing were Momo and Kaken, who were slowly losing their memories. They read every day what they had written in their notebooks, managing to remember some parts that they had forgotten. But still, sooner or later they both knew they would lose all their memories. As the days passed, their hopes were diminishing more and more. We are on day number 23 since what happened. Since day 20 both young people chose not to sleep, because they had practically lost 90% of their memories. They barely remembered the freckled man's name. Although they had written down the memories in their notebook, most of the pages had become blurry and difficult to read. Momo and Kaken were under the sphere sitting on the ground. Both would be leaning against the wall of a building. As they gazed at the sphere, they were extremely tired, as they had not slept for 3 days, so as not to completely forget their friend. There were only 2 hours left until the clock struck 12 o'clock, 2 hours to forget about Izuku. They both began to close their eyes slowly. They could no longer hold on any longer. Kaken, while closing his eyes, with a couple of tears, he said, I'm sorry, friend, forgive me for everything, goodbye forever, Deku. After saying that, the blonde had closed her eyes. Momo, Kaken, wake up, don't fall asleep. The blonde did not respond. The black-haired girl with tears in her eyes would say, I guess this is the end of everything, the end of our story. Forgive me, Izuku, I couldn't tell you that I love you. I couldn't tell you my feelings. Forgive me for forgetting you, but the time has come to let you go, to say goodbye. Thank you for giving me several happy moments at your side. Momo's eyes had closed as tears fell down her cheeks. Chapter 26, Consequences. At that point, a person approached where the 2 young people were, and he saw that the hands of the clock were just minutes away from striking 12. She would again place her gaze on both boys. The person would join her forehead with Momo's for a few seconds. She stood up, saying, I see, so that's what happened. The person standing next to both boys was Momo Yaoyorozu. Eli, Well, I guess this is all I can do. She placed her hand on the heads of both boys. A blue light would come out of her hands. The boys' bodies would shine brightly for a few seconds. As the clock was about to strike 12, the hands stopped at the last second. Eli would see this, saying, "I knew it." She sat next to both boys. Since there were only a couple of hours left until dawn, the brown-haired girl just closed her eyes and fell asleep. The hours had passed. Momo had woken up. This beast would say, "It can't be, I fell asleep, I forgot about Izuku. Huh! I still remember him, but This would see how the clock hand was still. It was 10 in the morning, it was a Saturday. People just passed by looking strangely at the boys. Momo would see how her cousin Eli was next to her. "Momo, Kaken, wake up." The blonde slowly opened her eyes, saying, "What do you want, Ponytail?" "Momo, tell me you remember Izuku." "Kaken, huh? Of course I remember, the damn nerd. Why?" He would open his eyes wide at what he had said. "Momo, we fell asleep and we didn't forget it. Besides that, I remember everything about him." "Kaken, me too." "Momo, look, the clock hand has stopped." "Kaken, could it be that?" At that Eli would open his eyes, saying, "If he is about to return, only he can stop the clock's hand." Momo and Kaken were happy about what the brown-haired girl had said. "Momo, but why don't we forget it? What the doctor said was..." "Eli, that was because I used my quirk on you too. I am the counterpart of Izuku's quirk." At such words, Momo and Kaken were speechless. Then a loud noise would be heard from inside the clock. The boys could see how the hands of the clock began to go back until they reached 12, just like when Izuku left for the first time. A large blue wave would emerge from the clock, which would cover the entire city in a matter of seconds. At that, everyone who had forgotten Izuku began to have all their memories return. Now all the citizens could see the sphere. "Momo, can they see her?" "Eli, yes, it seems that everything is back to normal. It is certain that now everyone remembers Izuku." All Might, who was walking through the academy, remembered his successor, David, and Melissa too, since they were still in the academy. "David, is this it?" "Melissa, yes, for sure." They quickly left the academy and looked at the large sphere in the distance. Nizu, remembering Izuku, gathered all the heroes and together with All Might they went to where the sphere was. Kendo was in the hospital. Because her father's operation had been a success, she was crying because she had forgotten Izuku. The entire Class 1A would arrive where the sphere was. Upon arriving, they saw Momo and Kaken. Mina and Kirishima met with them. All Might would watch in amazement as the hands of the clock had gone backwards. On the other hand, Izuku saw how everything around him began to fade away as if things were disintegrating. He felt Momo's warm and tender lips on his for the last time. Izuku would suddenly open his eyes. He would look around him, finding himself inside a bright blue sphere. "Izuku, is this it?" This one would give a smile, saying, "So I'm back, huh? Yes, it's true, I can't escape this reality. I can't escape and leave everyone just for my own happiness. Even though I don't have my mother by my side, I swear to her that I would become the greatest hero of all." The characteristic rays of One for All would emerge from Izuku's body. Izuku, with a big smile, would say, "There are still people I must protect." He would clench his fist tightly and say, "SSSSMASSSHHHH." Hitting the sphere with all its strength, it shattered into thousands of pieces, as if it were made of glass. Upon leaving this, Izuku would fall to the ground. He would look up, seeing how the entire city was destroyed and on fire. "Izuku, but what happened here?" Izuku's eyes widened as he saw the floor was stained with quite a bit of blood. Izuku would begin to walk through the streets. At one point he stopped when he saw Uraraka's lifeless body. The brown-haired girl was pierced with a piece of metal in her chest, exactly embedded on the wall. Izuku would quickly run towards her. "Izuku, Uraraka-san. What happened?" At that he would hear a voice that was quite familiar to him. Izuku would open his eyes wide. The freckled boy turned his gaze, seeing how Kaken was held by the neck. Behind him there was a shadow. The blonde was covered in blood. "Izuku, Kaken." His eyes watered as he watched it begin to disintegrate like ash. Izuku would be shedding several tears, and that he saw how in another part of the ground the bodies of several of his lifeless companions were lying. He chased the shadow from one moment to the next, and it reached a black-haired girl, who was lying lifeless on the ground, pierced by a sword in the abdomen. Izuku would quickly go to her with tears in his eyes and say, "No. Momo. Why? Momo-san. Who was the bastard who did all this?" At that a voice in Izuku's head would say, "You brought this all on yourself, look ahead." The freckled boy looked up and saw something that made his eyes widen. A small phrase was heard clearly. "Goodbye forever, one for all. All Might, I will soon join you and the others." Chapter 27, Different Paths. At that the freckled man suddenly opened his eyes. He was breathing heavily. Nana was still hugging him, and when she saw that he woke up, she couldn't help but feel happy. Izuku would have a look full of fear, mixed with a bit of sadness. "Nana, Izuku, you finally woke up, you fool, had me worried. I did everything I could to bring you back to this reality. Izuku, forgive me, Nana. Nana just hugged him tightly, since even though this was an illusion she could physically touch Izuku. "Nana, that doesn't matter anymore, the important thing is that you're back. Now you have to get out of this sphere, your friends are waiting for you, the girl you love so much is also waiting for you." Hearing those words, Izuku just lowered his head somewhat sadly. Nana would notice this, asking, "Are you okay, Izuku?" "Izuku, I've made my decision." "Nana, what are you talking about, Izuku?" "Izuku, I'm sorry about everything." He would raise his gaze with great determination, the rays of one for all coming out of his body with great strength. From outside the sphere his friends saw how Izuku's characteristic green rays came out of it. Seeing this, Momo and Kaken smiled big. Eli would take a deep breath, saying, "Here it comes." At that, great taste of wind would be expelled from the sphere. Everyone covered themselves. A loud noise was heard. The sphere would break into thousands of pieces, releasing a huge flash that blinded everyone for a few minutes. When they opened their eyes, they could see that on the ground there was a green-haired Izuku with rays coming out of his body. Izuku looked up, seeing all his friends, teachers and citizens looking at him. Momo, with tears in her eyes, would say, Izuku." The black-haired girl ran to give him a hug. Because she wanted to do it, she wanted to hug him and kiss him and ask him for forgiveness for everything she had said to him. But great was her surprise when she saw how Izuku had dodged her while the following words came out of his mouth. "Don't come near me." Momo just opened her eyes wide upon hearing those words. "Momo, Izuku, Izuku would see his friends in their typical little group. The freckled boy's gaze was serious. At that look, Kaken couldn't help but notice that something was happening to him, or had happened to his friend. "Izuku, from now on, don't come near me. I don't want you to get involved in my life. We are no longer friends." These words surprised everyone. Kirishima, somewhat angry, would say, "What the hell is wrong with you? We were worried about you, and now that you're back you say those words." He would start to approach Izuku, but Bakugo stopped him. "Kaken, something happened to him, that's why he said that." "Okay, if that's what you want, then we're nothing anymore." Mina, with tears in her eyes, would say, "Izuku, why are you acting like this? You know that whatever happened to you, you can talk to us, to me, after all, we are friends, right?" "Izuku, we were friends, now we are nothing." Izuku would walk past and reach where Eli was. He would stare at her. Eli did the same. "Izuku, I'm sorry I won't be able to keep the promise I made to you. Sorry for forgetting you, Eli-chan." Eli would just hug Izuku. This action surprised Momo. "Eli, you're a fool, you know that, right? It hurt me a lot when we saw each other again, and you didn't recognize me, Baka. But I forgive you for dancing with me." Izuku would only reciprocate the hug while he whispered something in his ear. Hearing these words, Eli just nodded his head. "Izuku, thank you." The freckled boy would look at his teachers and his mentor All Might. He would bow and say, "Sorry for all the trouble I caused you." Nizu would approach Izuku saying, The important thing is that young Midoriya is safe and sound. The rodent gave him a warm smile. Aisawa with a blank look would say, Midoriya, for doing all this you are grounded for 4 weeks. Nizu whispered the following words into the freckled boy's ear. Even though he doesn't show it, he cared a lot about you. I guess that's his way of showing it. Izuku, I see, by the way I forgot to tell you that. From today I, Izuku Midoriya, will leave the UA Hero Academy. These words surprised everyone present. Momo just opened her eyes wide with some tears. All Might, what are you saying, Shonen? Izuku, just as you heard, so if you allow me to go get my things at the academy. After saying that, the freckled man sent one for all to his legs and took a big leap away from the place. Nizu just looked seriously at the freckled boy as he walked away from the place. His companions were in shock. They were undoubtedly happy that Izuku had returned, but when they saw that he was not the same as before, they were quite surprised. Melissa had looked at the freckled boy in silence just like her father. Well, everyone was there. Nizu, well, if that's your decision, there's nothing that can be done. He will have his reasons and motives. Momo with tears in her eyes would say. Izuku. The freckled man, while flying through the air, would say. This is the only thing I can do. It's the best for everyone, right? While. I'm sorry. But from today we will take different paths. Chapter 28, Broken Promise. Izuku would arrive at the academy and began to walk, but upon entering the campus he came across a light blue girl. Nijire with tears in her eyes would say, Izuku, you finally came back. She gave him a big hug, while saying, Baka baka baka. Why did you do something as stupid as that? You had me very worried. I thought I would never see my favorite Kohai again. Izuku, senpai, I don't feel like talking right now. He has separated from Nijire's embrace. The light blue-haired girl was surprised because every time she hugged him he always turned red like a tomato. Nijire, are you okay? Why are you so serious? Izuku, senpai, I promise we'll talk later. For now I just want to go get some of my things and get out of here. Nijire, are you going to leave? Why? Izuku, don't make things more difficult, senpai, please get out of my way. Nijire with her head down would say, No, I don't want you to go, I won't let you. I don't know what's wrong with you, but I've been worried about you all this time. Because you were inside that sphere and now that you came back I hug you and you act as if nothing had happened. You fool are a fool, the girl Yaoyorozu and your friends were worried about you. They did everything possible to get you out of that sphere and you just want to leave. I won't move until you say why you want to leave. The light blue-haired girl had some tears threatening to escape from her watery eyes. Izuku, I can't be a hero. How can I be a hero if this is all my fault? I'm sorry, senpai. I've already made my decision. This is something personal. I don't expect you to understand, but I just want to get away from all of you. After saying that, Izuku walked past Nijire, who only had her head down. When he got to his bedroom he packed some clothes and a few things. Nana appeared next to him. She just looked at him in silence. Izuku, you know that no matter what you say I won't change my mind. You know that very well, Nana. I already listened to you once and I was rejected in front of everyone. Nana, I'm sorry, I guess I shouldn't have gotten involved in your life. I just wanted to see you happy. Izuku, happy? What part of my damn life is happy? I was born without a damn quirk. I lost my mother. I fell in love and was rejected. And when I decided to give love another chance, they reject me again, and there are things you don't know. I guess happiness is not made for me. If I came back it was for one goal only. The reason All Might inherited One for All to me was to defeat All for One, right? That's why it's been passed down from generation to generation. I don't have time to waste playing at being a hero. I have to master the rest of the One for All quirks. It will come soon and you know it better than anyone, Nana. Nana wouldn't say anything, she just stayed silent. The room fell into absolute silence. Nana, I'm sorry. If I hadn't told you to tell him your feelings none of this would have happened. I'm truly sorry. The black-haired girl had a sad look. Izuku had his back to her. He turned around looking at her in the eyes. Izuku, although I suppose not everything was bad, it is better to keep your feet on the ground than to get your hopes up for something that is not going to happen. After all, in that world where I was, she was finally able to reciprocate my feelings. I guess not everything is so bad. Izuku approached Nana and gave her a hug. Nana reciprocated by saying, I missed you so much. He had no one to bother. Izuku, I know, I'm sorry I shouldn't have left like that. After all, you only wanted the best for me, and I appreciate that you care about my Nana. Nana, and what are you going to do? Izuku, well, I already made a decision and that's not going to change. I wonder if when I die, will I be part of One for All? Nana, you're not going to die. I know you can defeat All for One, I'm more than sure of that. Izuku just stood there silently without saying anything. Izuku, well, I have to prepare my things. The freckled boy was about to walk towards his bed when he fell to his knees, his body vibrating abruptly. The freckled man's hands were shaking a lot. Izuku would quietly say, I'm sorry, Momo. I won't be able to keep that promise I made you in the other world. Forgive me. Nana, Izuku, are you okay? Izuku, don't worry about it, it's just temporary. Meanwhile, where Momo and the others were, the black-haired girl was crying in the arms of a certain pink-haired girl. Momo, I ruined everything, Mina. Now he hates me. I lost him, Mina. Mina, don't say that, Momo. I'm sure he doesn't hate you. It's true that he said some very hurtful words, but I guess he'll soon be the same as before, right, Bakugo? The pink-haired girl was shedding some tears. Bakugo, you better not get close to him. You heard him. He doesn't want us in his life anymore. After saying that, the blonde left the place. The teachers were still in shock from everything that had happened. Aisawa just remembered Izuku's words over and over again. From today I will leave the UA Hero Academy. Nizu, well, since young Midoriya is back, we can go back to the academy. There are still things to do. All the teachers agreed, as did some of the boys. Eli approached Momo and she said, Calm down, Momo. I know all this will soon pass. After all, I don't think he hates you. Momo, you and Izuku, do you know each other? That hug he gave you was like you were going to meet again. Eli, yes, Izuku and I already knew each other, but that was when we were kids. During the dance he didn't remember me, but it seems that when he left that sphere he remembered me. Momo, I see. And what will you do now? Will you return home? Eli, not yet, this isn't over yet. There are still things I need to do with Izuku. His face and personality weren't the same as usual. Something happened while he was inside that sphere. And I will be there for him to comfort him, and give him my help. Momo wouldn't say anything. Eli, well, see you, Momo. After saying that, the brown-haired girl left the place. Momo and the others returned to the academy with the teachers. Upon arriving at the academy, All Might went to the room of a certain green-haired man, as he wanted to talk to his successor. I have knocked on the door several times but got no response. All Might, Shinin, please talk to me, I need to talk to you. The blonde didn't get any response. He just walked away from the place. All of Izuku's classmates and friends were gathered in the dorm room. Well, these were about Izuku's words. Ida, I still don't understand why Midoriya wants to leave the academy? Tokoemi, I don't know if you noticed it or not, but... His eyes reflected some fear and sadness. Jairu, it's true, and his words made a sad sound. Something happened to him for him to change like that. Bakugo was in his room remembering Izuku's words. We are no longer friends. I don't want them to interfere in my life. Kaken, I know everything you said is a lie, Deku. Behind those words there is a great sadness. I swear that I will find a way to carry that sadness. You are not alone because I will be with you. Damn fool, you come back and say all that. I owe you a lot, and this time I won't fail to help you, my friend. On the other hand, we can see Izuku right in front of his mother's grave. Izuku, here I am again, Mom. Sorry for being absent for so long. Wait for me soon. We'll see each other again soon, Mom. You know I'm happy because in the world I was in all this time I was able to be with you once again. Tears fell from the freckled boy's cheeks. Izuku, it was really nice to be able to see you once again. Although it was something I created, it could have become real, but the best thing was to return to this reality. After half an hour, the freckled man left the place. Upon arriving at his old house, he went inside because he had previously left the things he took from his room at the UA in his old house. A whole day had passed, and we could see the freckled man with his torso covered in blood, kneeling in his room. Izuku, I failed again. Then the whole place turned into a great black space, as if it were nothingness itself. A voice would say, "Don't go on, Izuku, don't hurt yourself anymore." Izuku, that voice is the same one I heard when I left the Yaoyorozu dance. He looked up and saw a beautiful girl with silver hair and beautiful blue eyes. Izuku, so you were the owner back then? Wasn't that right? Chapter 29, 8,000 Paths and a Single Destination. The girl in front of Izuku would say, "Bing Bon, you found me out." She gave him a big smile. "Izuku, what is this place? And why are you showing up right now?" The beautiful girl approached the freckled man saying, "I'm Liz and the reason is simple, I'm here to stop you, you've already hurt your body enough, I see that you still don't know how to control your quirk." He said this because Izuku's torso was covered in blood. Below Liz a light blue clock formed. "Izuku, is this it?" "Liz, this is the same thing you saw that night before you created the other world. I honestly don't know why you didn't stay there." She just slid her index finger over Izuku's chest, causing the blood to return to Izuku's body. The freckled boy watched in amazement as his wound disappeared, but a small scar remained. "Liz, I see you activate your quirk unconsciously. Tell me, do you really want to continue with this?" The girl's beautiful blue eyes fell on Izuku's. "Izuku, why did you show me that time?" "Liz, I wanted to warn you so you're prepared even though I think that is something difficult to change." "Izuku, by the way, who are you?" "Liz, huh? Didn't I tell you?" "Izuku, no, you didn't tell me anything." "Liz, I'm sorry, forgive me, I am the physical manifestation, so to speak, of your quirk." These words left the freckled man speechless. "Izuku, what did you just say?" "Liz, you didn't listen to me?" "Okay, I'll say it one more time, I'm the manifestation of your quirk. Just as the ancient bearers of one for all manifest before you, so am I. Well, not to mention that you and I have been linked since birth. Let me explain better, you and I can see beyond the present and the past. What we can create another reality is what you did in the other world, you created a world where your mother was alive. You were close to making it a reality. But you decided to wake up and return to this reality, and I still don't understand why." "Izuku, so what I saw that time is..." "Liz, if I showed you the future and you could witness it with your own eyes, Izuku, we cannot directly travel in time, we can simply see what will happen, take it as a jump in time." "Izuku, I see." "Liz, you don't remember me, do you?" "Izuku, huh? Have we met before?" Liz would just take a breath saying, "Do you remember that time the doctor told you that you didn't have a quirk?" Izuku, yes, if I remember that day, how can I forget it? Liz, well, the next day you told your kindergarten friends that you didn't have a quirk and they made fun of you. You headed outside that time, it was raining, and you were just crying for everything that had happened to you. That's when I woke up, or rather, you woke me up. That time, even if you don't remember it, when you wished everything would stop for a moment. The water droplets stopped as they did everything around you. The sound of water falling to the ground had ceased. You looked up and saw how the drops of water were suspended in the air. Liz just let out a small laugh, saying, "You got very scared and fainted within seconds." Izuku just opened his eyes wide as he had remembered that moment. Liz would see the expression on the freckled man's face, saying, "You finally remembered." Izuku, then I. Liz, yes, you were born with an IZUKU quirk. Unlike the others, your quirk is a little more complicated to activate. But don't worry, you'll learn little by little. By the way, the scars are the times you died. Izuku, The times I've died? Liz, yes, since you activated your quirk unconsciously, you chose a path to a destination, but you died in the process of the story? And the scar is proof of that. The beautiful girl raised her left palm, revealing a smaller blue clock than the one before. Izuku watched as the needles of this one spun at high speed. Liz, please, I want you to look back. The freckled man turned around, seeing how a path of white light began to form in the darkness of the place and divided into thousands of paths like the branches of a tree. Izuku, what is this? Liz, these are 1,000 paths and one destination. Izuku, 1,000 paths? But of what? Liz, from the future. Of the death of all heroes, of the death of the symbol of peace, where all for one ends them all. Where you lose one for all, where you die, Izuku. There is only one destiny that can change that future, but it is impossible to know which one it is. History can be rewritten just like the future. But the price is high. Izuku, I don't care. I will take whatever path is necessary. I will die as many times as necessary to change everyone's future. Liz only saw the freckled boy's determined gaze. You're scared, aren't you? You're afraid of failing and you know it, Izuku. But you still keep going, you really are a great guy. You suffered too much, and yet you don't care about continuing to suffer for others. Izuku, it's heroic to smile with a crying heart. To fail 1,000 times and still keep trying. So I'm counting on you, Liz. Liz watched as Izuku gave her a big smile. She came closer but opened her eyes wide. Liz, get out of the house quickly, Izuku. Izuku opened his eyes wide. He saw how things began to disintegrate at great speed. The freckled boy quickly jumped out of the window. He would fall in the middle of the street. The house where Izuku previously lived had been reduced to nothing. He could see that there were 3 subjects on one side of the land. The freckled man recognized 2 of them but did not recognize the other. Izuku, you are Shigaraki. Shigaraki, it's good to see you again, brat. We never saw each other again after the attack on USUJ. Calm down, we won't hurt you. He began to scratch his neck in frustration as he said, You see, the teacher is interested in you, so you will come with us. Nana in Izuku's mind would say, All for one. Izuku, I'm not going anywhere with you. The characteristic rays of one for all would emerge from Izuku's body. Shigaraki, Master didn't specify whether he wanted you alive or dead. Muscular, take care of him, you can torture him your way. Chapter 30, the beginning of the future that Izuku tried to change. Muscular, with a smile on his face, began to slowly walk towards Izuku. Izuku in his thoughts would say, Curse. Izuku glanced around and saw that there were quite a few people watching what was happening. Izuku, my priority is people, I must prevent this guy from hurting them. Muscular, looks like my time for some fun has come. I honestly didn't think I'd have to fight a brat, but anyway, I'll torture you for a while. After saying that, he launched himself at high speed towards Izuku. The freckled boy reacted in time by taking a great leap upwards. Muscular slammed his fist into the ground, destroying part of the pavement. Izuku, he has incredible strength, I have to be careful. He opened his eyes wide as he saw how muscular he was right in front of his eyes. Izuku in his thoughts would say, What speed? Muscular hit him hard in the face, sending Izuku flying a couple of meters. That blow had been quite strong. Izuku recovered as best he could, looking up to see Muscular running at high speed towards him. Izuku, 1 for all 30%. Green rays came out of his body, and he launched himself towards Muscular, dodging one of his blows. The freckled man clenched his right fist and said with great force, SSSSSMAESHHH. Izuku landed that punch right in his face, but barely managed to move him a couple of meters. Muscular had a little blood on his lips which he wiped away as he said, Not a bad kid, but that won't be enough to stop me. Izuku could see how his body began to be covered with a muscle fiber. Such an action increased the musculature and size of his rival. Izuku in his thoughts would say, Its size has increased, I have to use more 1 for all, but That means breaking my arm if I don't defeat him with a powerful attack. He will kill me. Shigaraki just watched with a big smile on his face. Muscle, let's see if you can keep up with me, brat. In a big blink, he gave him a powerful kick to the ribs. Izuku spat out a lot of blood. He was quickly slammed against the pavement after receiving a powerful blow to the face. Muscular continued to exert force with his fist. Izuku had a little blood on his face. A sharp pain lay right on his side where he had received that powerful kick. Well, it was no wonder since he had 2 broken ribs and one of them managed to pierce his left lung. The freckled man was spitting up a lot of blood due to the internal bleeding he had. Izuku held Muscular's fist with his hands in an attempt to free himself. Izuku, his strength and speed have increased. I have to take a risk and use more power of one for all, no matter if I break my arms myself. He gave a loud cry of pain as blood came out of his mouth, as Muscular gave him a brutal blow to the stomach with his left hand. Muscular, what's up, brat? Don't tell me that's all you have? I thought you would give me more fun, but you are a weakling. Shigaraki, just finish him quickly before the heroes get here. After all, I don't think Kurojiri can hold them all back. If only Master had given us the High and Nomus army, we could have taken the entire city completely. It would be great to see the look of terror on people's faces as they watch their heroes die one by one. But the teacher will soon be in charge of making terror reign. He began to laugh macabrely. The people who were there watched in horror as they tortured the green-haired boy. They asked for a hero to come and help them, but it seemed like he wouldn't come. A helicopter from the air focused on the brutal scene. All of this was being broadcast throughout Japan. At UA, Izuku's classmates were in the living room watching in horror what was happening. Momo was just crying at what she saw. Aisawa, All Might and the other heroes had left towards where Izuku was. In a part of the city, more exactly in a building near the area where Shigaraki and Muscular were, Kurojiri was watching in case any hero approached the area. He saw how a rabid heroine was running at high speed through the streets while saying, "I'm on my way, boy, I swear I'll kick that guy's ass." The rabbit had a smile on her face. Kurojiri, well, if it's the heroine Mirko, I can't let her get to where young Shigaraki is. It will be an obstacle to the mission. This created a portal in front of Mirko. This took her by surprise. Without being able to avoid it, she went through the portal. Kurojiri immediately closed it. Mirko appeared in another place far away from the city. It was a kind of forest. Mirko, damn it. That took me by surprise. Where the hell am I? Kurojiri noticed how in the distance All Might came at high speed in a racerhead who was jumping from building to building while his bandages were moving. Aisawa in her thoughts would say, "You said Midoriya, please resist. I'm not going to lose you again, no." Kurojiri was alarmed to see how the symbol of peace would be where Shigaraki was in a couple of seconds. He gave a smile and created a portal centimeters away from All Might which he could not send, because it had taken him by surprise. The blonde had been transported to a place where everything was dark. "All Might, where am I? Please shonen resist." Aisawa watched as All Might disappeared. Below this a portal opened, falling into it completely. In the same way it was transported to another place, but the place was an abandoned building. The whole place was dark. Without realizing, a kind of reddish smoke was in the place. He unconsciously inhaled it. "Aisawa, what is this place?" Through all the darkness, he could barely make out a plum in the darkness. Aisawa got into a combat stance and asked, "Who are you? Show your face." Without receiving any response, he began to walk slowly, but to his surprise, from one second to the next the place was somewhere else. This before his eyes was the view of the destroyed city. Fear could not help but run through his body when he saw how, in front of him, the lifeless bodies of his children were on the ground. Without thinking, he went towards them. Several heroes lay dead on the spot, some in very thick ways. Aisawa's eyes began to moisten at what she was seeing. He could hear a voice coming from in front of him. He immediately went towards that voice because he had recognized it just by hearing it. Aisawa fell to his knees as he saw a raven-haired girl on the ground with her abdomen covered in blood. Isawa, with tears in her eyes, would say. No. Yaoyorozu, please wake up, resist. Hold on a little longer. The black-haired girl who had tears in her eyes would say. I'm sorry, Sensei. She spat blood from her mouth. Why, oh. I couldn't save the person I love. I don't want to live without him. Isawa, don't say that, please don't go. The brunette's eyes closed, and her pulse had stopped completely. Isawa was just shedding tears several at that a voice would say. Wow, erase your head, you couldn't protect your beloved offspring in the end. They are dead because of you. On the other hand, Izuku had been able to get rid of Muscular. Izuku had removed a few wounds on his body. Izuku, one for all 80%. Muscular, that's it. Come with everything, brat. Endeavor, who was heading towards the place at high speed, had to dodge a flare of blue fire. He easily recognized her and stopped. Dalby would emerge from a portal with his characteristic blue flames from his hands. Dalby, I can finally face the number 2 hero Endeavor. He had a smile on his face. Endeavor just had a serious look as he watched Dalby begin to raise the heat of his flames. Note: this story doesn't follow any plot arc, so I'll be involving several characters from the story. End of note. Elsewhere we can see a truck driving through the streets at high speed. Above this was Mr. Compers, and in his right hand he carried 4 marbles holding 4 professional heroes. Mr. Compers, the mission is going perfectly. Distraction is certainly essential for the next magic trick. In that he dodged a wave of energy from a certain sky blue hair. Nijire, I have them in my sights, I won't let them escape, he said through an intercom. Ryukyu fell in front of the truck in his dragon form and stopped them with his hands. Ryukyu, go to where that boy is. Nijire understood. It quickly flew away from the place with its waves. Ryukyu in his thoughts would say. They want to take the boy at all costs, but why? What is the reason for all this? Nijire, hold on Izuku, let's go. Mirio, Tamaki, you guys are already arriving at the place. The intercom came. POWWER. Mirio was passing through an alley where there were several villains as an obstacle. Mirio, I'm almost there, Nijire. Nijire, understood, we must protect Izuku at all costs. Tamaki did not respond to the call because he was facing a subject who had the appearance of a wolf with his hands in the shape of bird claws. Tamaki had some blood and a couple of wounds. Tamaki in his thoughts would say, he's very strong, I have to defeat him and hurry up. I wonder if the boys have arrived at the place yet. This day couldn't have started any better. We can see the freckled man with both arms purple and quite a bit of blood embedded against a building, on the verge of losing consciousness. Barely muscular and with a few wounds, his size was colossal, he was literally a monster. This one headed towards Izuku slowly to give him the final blow. The freckled boy's vision was becoming increasingly blurry, Izuku said to himself. Come on, Deku, you have to get up once more, you can't die here. I have to change the future of all of us. I don't have to die yet, it's not my time yet. The terrified people had moved away from the place out of fear. At that, a little girl stood in front of Izuku and with tears in her eyes said, Please, sir, don't hurt the boy anymore. Minutes ago Izuku had saved that little girl from being hit by a muscle man. Izuku said with little strength. Get away from here, it's dangerous. Please run away. Muscular stood in front of the little girl and held her by the hair. The little girl was crying in pain. Muscular, don't worry, after killing your hero, you'll continue. After saying that, he threw the little girl to the side with some force. The girl suddenly hit a wall and fell unconscious. Izuku's eyes widened. The rays began to emerge abruptly from his body, colliding with each other. Muscular looked at Izuku with a smile on his face. I have charged at Izuku at high speed. Loading all his strength into his right fist, he launched his punch towards the freckled man's face. With such force, a large amount of air was expelled from the place, attacking the building in which the freckled man was embedded. Destroying it in parts, causing the window panes to break due to the vibration of the impact. Shigaraki saw this with a big smile. A curtain of dust appeared caused by some debris from the building. Muscular kept his smile. Shigaraki, who had a smile on his face, immediately changed to a serious one as he looked up. Pieces of glass fragments had gone flying and people nearby simply took cover to await the worst. Muscular watched as the glass hung in the air without moving. He saw how in the sky was Izuku. In his left eye he had a clock on his ocular retina. The needles receded, causing Izuku's wounds to heal at an incredible speed as well as his arms. Her eyes were a light blue color, and black whips came out of her body, which were holding the aforementioned little girl. Izuku's hair turned white. Izuku's body was levitating in the air. The 4th and 7th wielder's quirks have been activated. Chapter 31. Even if my life goes out. Shigaraki, what is this? Does he have more than one quirk like the master? Muscular looked at Izuku with some astonishment. Nijire, who was going through the sky, almost arrived, could see how Izuku was levitating in the skies. Nijire watched this in amazement as Izuku was levitating and black whips were coming out of his body which were holding a little girl. Not to mention that her hair was white. Nijire Izuku. Mirio was heard saying over the intercom. Nijire, are you seeing the same thing as me? That boy is floating in the air and black whips are coming out of his body. It must be his quirk, we have to hurry. Nijire, yes, you're right. The helicopter closest to the place clearly focused on Izuku's face. At UA, all his friends were surprised to see Izuku's appearance. Kaken just gave a smile. Mina, Izuku's hair is white. Kirishima, black whips come out of his body. Todoroki looked at this with some astonishment. Momo just put her hand on her chest as she looked at Izuku. Kaminari, what happened to Midoriya? She certainly looks great in that outfit. The boys in Class B were watching this in equal surprise. Kendo was worried about Izuku and at the same time surprised by his new appearance. What no one knew was that all of this was being observed from the darkness of a room, which was barely illuminated by the light of a screen, in which what happened was shown. The person who was watching this just gave a big smile while saying, I knew it. One for All possesses the quirks of the former wielders. If I'm not mistaken, he is using the quirk of the 7th wielder. What was his name? I already remembered, that is the levitation quirk of the late heroine Nana Shimura. The black whips belonged to that guy. However, why now? That kid activated them. I've never seen previous wielders do it, not even All Might himself. It will certainly be worth it to kill that brat and get back what belongs to me. A macabre laugh was heard throughout the room. Through the door that was in the room, a man with glasses and a doctor's coat would enter. Subject, my lord, the regeneration tube is now ready. The liquid with the cell-regenerating substance has been a success. We can now begin with your recovery. It is only a matter of time before you have your previous body again, my lord. Oh, and before I forget, the High and Nomus army, it is only one step away from finishing their incubation process. All for one, perfect. My era of terror is more than close. Just wait for me, All Might. You and your successor will die at my hands. Meanwhile, All Might would be in a place and at a time that he could barely overcome right before his eyes. It was the most painful scene for him. His eyes were once again witnessing the death of his teacher, the death of Nana Shimura. All Might, this is not true. It's just an illusion. My teacher is already. Voice O. Do you really think this is an illusion? The pain she is feeling. Do you think that's an illusion? He said as All Might watched his teacher slowly die before his eyes. On the other hand, Tamaki had been able to defeat his opponent, but his condition was very critical. Because he had serious injuries and his vision was becoming increasingly blurry. He could barely stand. Tamaki, I'm sorry guys, I won't be able to help. He would fall to the ground unconscious because he had a large wound in his abdomen and had lost a lot of blood. Ryukyu had Mr. Compress and twice in his dragon claws. Ryukyu, the traps have no escape, they have already caused enough chaos. Mr. Compress, oh? We would like to stay and chat, but we are out of time. It's time to close the magic act. After saying this, Ryukyu watched in amazement as they began to deform into a kind of gray mud. Ryukyu, they were just copies? SW. Where are the real ones? This is serious, they were playing with us the whole time. You must inform others immediately. Endeavor, after having launched a strong flame in an intense attack, could see how the supposed Dabi turned into mud. Endeavor, I knew he was just an imposter. TCH. It just made me waste my time going after the boy. Meanwhile, Izuku was in the air levitating. Muscular, perfect, I want you to come with everything you have, boy. After saying that, he launched a great leap towards Izuku. The Pikoko was motionless. He said in a low voice. 1 for all 80%. After saying that, a huge force of wind sent Muscular crashing brutally into the pavement. The wind whipped through the city streets in a brutal manner, and people nearby were held down with Izuku's whips. The air pressure sent Nijire flying a couple of meters. It was undoubtedly a pretty strong wind pressure. Shigaraki was also dragged along a bit. Muscular, who spat out some blood at the impact, got up from the ground as best he could, raising his gaze to see Izuku, but he was surprised to see that the freckled boy was next to him. Izuku had placed the people on the roof of a nearby building for their safety. The freckled boy's eyes shone brightly. The rays of One for All came out in all their splendor but in a bright blue color. Izuku, One for All 100%. What little remained of his suit was torn apart, leaving his torso completely exposed. Izuku clenched his fist with all his might. Muscular didn't have time to react. Izuku, DTTTRRROIDTT. SSSMASHHHHHHH. This one connected a powerful blow to his face, impacting him again against the ground, creating a large crater due to the pressure of the impact. Izuku pressed with all his strength, breaking the entire pavement. The muscular man's eyes were rolled back in his head as his body slammed brutally into the hard pavement. Shigaraki was sent flying by the air pressure. The air pressure traveled through every street in the city or parts of it. The helicopter that was filming everything was shaken abruptly by the pressure of the wind. Mirio, who was arriving already, covered himself from the pressure of the wind and was dragged a little. Mirio, is Izuku causing this? Incredible. I must hurry. Kurojiri, who was watching from a building, disappeared from it because he knew that things had gotten out of control. Izuku knocked out Muscular after that blow. The freckled boy was breathing heavily. At that, he made a great leap, dodging blue flames which radiated great heat. Izuku saw that it was Dabi again, the freckled one who avoided Shigaraki because he was almost touched by his fingers. If he touched it, he would be disintegrated in a fraction of a second. Dabi, wow, looks like your plan went to shit, Shigaraki. Shigaraki, shut up, I'm not in the mood, let's catch the brat quickly. Dabi on his palms ignited his blue flames. His eyes widened as he watched the streetlights being turned down and beginning to levitate around Izuku. In each stranger a point was created. Dabi, shit. Izuku moved his hands, launching four spear-shaped poles at high speed towards Dabi and Shigaraki. Explanation. Fourth Wilder quirk. Object manipulation, can manipulate, mold solid objects that will taking any shape the wearer desires. This ability allows the user to manipulate objects that are within its range, which is 50 meters around it. This only applies to objects in solid states, no matter what component they are made of. It is generally confused with telekinesis, due to the levitation of objects, however this is thanks to his quirk. End of explanation. One of the spears pierced Shigaraki's right leg, this scream of pain falling to his knees. Dabi raised his flames to such a point that he was able to melt the steel spears until they reached their liquid state due to the heat temperature exerted. With a large amount of flames he attacked Izuku, which received the flames fully. Dabi, that's it. Burn in my flames, brat. Izuku walked through the flames appearing above Dabi. The freckled man had his body wrapped in the black whips. Izuku opened his arms, clearing his body of the whips. Dabi couldn't say anything in shock. Izuku raised his right leg up as he said, "Manchester Smash." He hit him with a powerful kick to the head, brutally pinning Dabi to the ground. Izuku felt how his body began to hurt suddenly. "Izuku, the only thing missing is your Shigaraki Tamura." He looked at his enemy at his side. Shigaraki with his quirk disintegrated the spear that was embedded in his right leg. "You! I swear I will kill you, Izuku Midoriya." He was about to attack, but Kurogyri appeared in front of him. "Kurogyri, we must go young. There are heroes who are approaching us. I won't be able to hold them all anymore." Shigaraki gave a death glare to Izuku, who didn't look away from him even for a second. "We will meet again. And next time you and All Might will die." After saying that, he disappeared into a portal created by Kurogyri. They both disappeared from the place. Izuku saw a light blue movie coming in the distance. "I did it." The freckled man couldn't take it anymore and fell unconscious to the ground. His hair returned to its normal color, the whips and lightning stopped coming out of his body. Upon arriving, Nijire saw how Izuku had defeated Muscular. When she saw the freckled man on the ground, she became worried about him and immediately went to see him. She couldn't help but blush when she saw the freckled man's torso, which was already quite worked out. But when she saw some scars in her chest area, she became a little worried. Within minutes, Mirio, Ryukyu, Endeavor and other heroes would arrive. After leaving Kurogyri, Isawa and All Might were returned to the city. They were confused, but they had no time to think about what they had experienced. They took the freckled man to the UA. It was the safest place for him. Not to mention that his house and everything the freckled man had been disintegrated by Shigaraki. Nijire and All Might were in charge of bringing down the people that Izuku had left on the roof to protect them. The police arrived within minutes and arrested Muscular and Dabi. Endeavor stared at Dabi for a few seconds. They were informed that 4 pro heroes had been captured. Given this information, All Might became worried since he knew that All for One was behind all this. 4 hours had passed and Izuku was unconscious in the Academy's infirmary. When he arrived carried in All Might's arms, his companions couldn't help but worry, especially Izuku's little group. Momo was the one who was most worried. When she placed the freckled boy on the stretcher, a sphere instantly surrounded Izuku as if it were some kind of barrier. This surprised those present. Recovery Girl, All Might, Principal Nizu, Isawa and Izuku's little group. The sphere was similar to the one from that time, but this one was transparent and of a light blue color. We can see Izuku in a place where everything was dark, as if it were nothingness itself. Accompanied by a beautiful girl with silver hair and blue eyes. Liz, well done Izuku, you were able to awaken the quirks of the 4th and 7th carrier. Izuku, it seems so. Liz, so. Which path will you choose now? The future you saw is already becoming a reality. Izuku looked behind him and saw a path of bright white light again. It was a path that divided into several, like the branches of a tree. Izuku, well, it's time to die again, until I find the path that will lead me to the salvation of my friends. Liz would take Izuku's hand saying, "It's time, Izuku." This would show a warm smile. "Izuku, here we go. I will change everyone's destiny even if my life is extinguished in the process." Chapter 32, Countdown. Momo would only see the person who stole her heart unconscious in the infirmary, surrounded by the same sphere as the first time, but it was transparent and did not have the clock on it. The other boys were outside the room, since they could only enter one at a time, and they had turns taking care of Izuku taken. They had seen the news and how the green-haired man had shown the black whips in addition to levitation and object manipulation. This was news throughout Japan. Well, they played the video every second. No doubt this surprised several heroes when they saw how a boy had several quirks. All Might, seeing the video of what had happened, couldn't help but give a slight smile, saying, "I knew it. I certainly wasn't wrong in choosing you as my shonen successor. Without a doubt, you will be the best symbol of peace that has ever existed." A whole day had passed and the freckled man still hadn't woken up. Now the one next to him was Kendo because she also offered to take care of him, since Momo also needed to rest a little since she was the one who wanted to spend the most time with him. Kendo would just look at the freckled man and saw how the cut ran from end to end across Izuku's torso. His torso began to fill with blood. Kendo was scared when she saw that. She was about to call recovery, but she saw how the freckled man sat on the stretcher breathing heavily. Kendo could see that there was a clock in his left eye. The orange-haired girl saw how the needles in it began to recede. Kendo couldn't believe what he was seeing as the blood returned to Izuku's wound, while it closed, leaving a large scar. Izuku, damn it! I died again. The sphere that was around Izuku had disappeared. Kendo, seeing his friend, gave him a big hug without thinking. This took Izuku by surprise. Kendo, Izuku, silly, I can finally see you again. She hugged Izuku tightly, who separated from the hug, saying, What are you doing here, Kendo-san? Kendo, I'm taking care of you. You've been unconscious for a day after the fight you had. Izuku, I see. He got up and put on the sports shirt that was next to his bed. Nisa had left it for Izuku to put on since the freckled boy had his torso exposed. After doing so, he began to walk towards the door to leave without looking back, but he stopped abruptly and asked, How did your dad's operation go? Kendo, it went well. He is now safe and sound, thanks to you and the boys. I owe a lot. I don't know how to repay you for everything you did for me, Izuku. Izuku, I'm glad to hear that. Goodbye, Kendo-san. Kendo could notice how the freckled boy put distance between her and all her friends. Before he left the room, Kendo grabbed him by the right arm, stopping him. Kendo, why? Why do you act like this? What happened to you inside that sphere? Since you came back, you changed. You are no longer the Izuku I knew. You are not the Izuku that I. Izuku just took a deep breath, saying, If I told you, you wouldn't understand. Believe me, this is the best for me and for all of you. If I manage to change everything, I promise I'll tell you the truth. I simply don't want you and the others to leave. Kendo didn't understand the freckled boy's words. Izuku left the room, and to his surprise he found Momo, Mina, Kirishima, Nijire, Mirio, and Tamaki. Izuku just looked at them for a moment but tried to cross through them, but Momo and Mina as well as Nijire stood in their way. Izuku with a cold voice said, Get out of my way. Momo, no. I'm not moving from here, idiot. I've been worried about you this whole damn time. You don't know how I've felt since the night of the dance. Since that day I've wanted to talk to you, tell you what I couldn't tell you. And when you came back you just walked away from all of us, you left the academy. Tell me, why are you doing all this to us? Do you think what you're doing to me doesn't hurt? Izuku, and you think it didn't hurt me when you rejected me that night? Izuku looked away to the side, swallowing his frustration at everything that was happening. Momo's eyes slowly watered upon hearing what Izuku said to her. Mina, Izuku took Izuku's hand tenderly, and with his crystallized eyes said, Please tell us what happened to you. We are your friends, Izuku. You already forgot everything we went through together. I was there to listen to you as well as Bakugo and Kirishima. We will not leave you alone. Please tell us what made you change like that. We know you well, Izuku, and this is not you. Izuku, what do you know about me? Izuku abruptly broke free from Mina's grip and stepped between them. Nijire grabbed him by the shirt. Nijire, please, Izuku. Mirio, Nijire, leave him. He doesn't want to talk to you. Give him his time. Nijire, no, I won't let go. Not until you tell me what's really wrong with you. Izuku, senpai, this will be the last time I say it. Let me go otherwise. Green rays began to emerge from his body. Nijire let go of him and Izuku simply walked away from the place, leaving his friends alone. As he was walking through the halls he ran into Director Nizu and All Might. They were accompanied by Dr. David Shield and Melissa. Nizu, oh young Midoriya, I see that you are awake. We were very worried about you. All Might, until you finally wake up, Shonen, we have to talk seriously, you and I. By the way, let me introduce you to my great friend and his daughter. They are Izuku, Dr. David Shield and Melissa Shield. All Might, surprised by the freckled man's words, asked, Did you already know them, Shonen? Izuku, well, something like that. That doesn't matter now. Nice to meet you, he said, bowing. David, I'm delighted to meet you in person, Izuku Midoriya. You already met us in the other reality that you created, right? All Might and Niza looked at David somewhat surprised. Izuku, how do you know that? David, I assumed so. Well, boy, while you were trapped in that sphere, I had the opportunity to study you and your quirk. Let me tell you that it is an amazing quirk, but dangerous if it is in the wrong hands. Because you can create another reality and make it physically real. You are certainly a curious person, especially now that I could see that you have other quirks. I would honestly love to know more about you. I've never seen anything like this. Melissa, please excuse my father. He gets very excited when he discovers a rather unusual quirk like yours. Melissa walked up to Izuku and gave him a warm smile. Izuku, I'm certainly happy to see you again, Mel. Melissa, Mel? Izuku, I'm sorry. What happens is that in the reality I was in, you told me to just call you Mel. Melissa blushed at that last bit. Izuku, are you okay? Melissa, if nothing happens. Meanwhile, in a small, somewhat elegant bar were Kurogyri, Shigaraki, and the rest of the League of Villains. Except for Dabi and Muscular. Shigaraki had his leg bandaged. That brat will pay for this. I swear I will kill him with my own hands. At that, Kurogyri would say, Young Tamura, the master wishes to speak with you. Shigaraki, take me to the Kurogyri. Kurogyri would create a portal appearing right in front of All for One. All for One, they finally arrived. I'd been waiting for them. Shigaraki, Master, why did you want to see me? All for One, to be honest, you're not used to me anymore. Shigaraki, what did you say? This would be taken by the neck. All for One, but your quirk will be very useful to me. Shigaraki would try to free himself, but he couldn't. All for One stole Tamura's deterioration quirk. After having done it with the same explosion that killed Nana Shimura, he hit Shigaraki, completely destroying the place. Kurogyri, terrified by what he saw, said nothing. All for One, well, tell me, Doctor. How long will it take to regenerate? Doctor, in 5 days you will be as good as new. And you can start playing with those heroes. All for One, perfect. In 5 days All Might will die. Izuku Midoriya, just wait for me, I'll come for you soon. Chapter 33. I will die for the person I love. On the other hand, Izuku would be under the direction of Director Nizu, along with All Might, Melissa, and David. All Might, Shonen, I see you were able to activate my teacher's quirk. Izuku looked at All Might in surprise as he was talking about One for All in front of David and Melissa. All Might would notice this and say, Don't worry, Shonen, they already know about One for All just like Director Nizu. Izuku, I see, then I'll be able to speak completely normally. If I was able to activate the quirk of the 7th carrier and that of the 4th carrier. The black whips are from the 6th wielder, but you already saw it before, All Might. All Might, and that sphere you created that time was the quirk of the 4th bearer, right? Izuku, you're wrong, that was my own quirk. At those words, All Might and Nizu were quite surprised. All Might, your quirk? I thought you were a quirk less like I was. Izuku, until recently I thought the same thing, but all this time I lived wrong. Apparently I was born with a quirk, but the reason for awakening them was different from a normal quirk, so to speak. All Might, I see. When you fought against Muscular and Shigaraki, your hair turned white. What is the reason for that? Izuku, that was the work of the 4th carrier's quirk. Object manipulation, is what I called it. Nizu him? Izuku, if you see, the 4th bearer of One for All appeared before me and helped me activate his quirk and explained to me how it works. All Might, then. Can you talk to the former bearers of One for All? Izuku, yeah, well, something like that. So far I was able to speak with the 4th, 6th, 7th carrier. I have not been able to speak or see the other carriers. All Might, have you been able to talk to my teacher? Izuku, yes. She is the one who appears to me most frequently, the one I talk to the most. Well, to tell the truth, she is the most annoying. In Izuku Nana's head it would say, "Hey, don't be too silly, Baka." Izuku, I'm sorry, Nana. All Might is surprised by such words, because when he was the bearer of one for all, something similar never happened to him. Izuku put on a serious look, saying, "Why did you never tell me the truth, All Might?" All Might, what are you talking about, Shonen? Izuku, why did you never tell me that you fought with Sir Night Eye? Why did you never tell me the real reason? All Might just stayed silent. Izuku, I knew that you and he were great partners like you are with Dr. David's shield. The reason you fought was because he used his forecast on you, wasn't it? He saw your destiny, he saw the future where you die. Did you know? All Might, Shonen me. Izuku, don't come to me with lies, All Might. Did you know? Isn't that right? I have told you. Why did you never tell me that? If I had known, I would have trained as hard as possible every day. Because. Tears began to fall down the freckled boy's cheeks. At this revelation, David and Melissa were in shock. Well, All Might had never told them that. Melissa, Uncle Might, is that true? Nizu, who knew the truth, just kept silent because it was All Might who had to tell them. All Might just turned into his slim form, approaching Izuku, and hugged him in a fatherly way while saying, "That's why I didn't tell you. I didn't want you to know the truth about my future. I knew how much you admired me. How could I say something like that to you? I just couldn't. I didn't want to have to worry about you, Shonen, much less put a huge burden on you. But I see that you already know the truth, forgive me." Izuku just hugged him tightly, saying, "While I will change that future, I promise. During this time you were like my father, I already lost my mother. I don't want to lose anyone else, that's why I will master the rest of the quirks and defeat all for one, even if it takes my life for it." All Might just hugged Izuku, saying, "Don't overexert yourself, you don't have to carry all of Shonen. David boy, if you want, I can make you a new suit that fits your new quirks." "What do you say?" "It would be an honor for me to create the costume that the new symbol of peace will wear," he said while giving a slight smile. Izuku wiped away his tears and agreed. "David, okay daughter, we have to take Izuku's measurements and start working." Melissa just nodded her head. "Nizu, about that, Dr. David, there is a student in general courses. She aspires to create artifacts that help heroes just like you. Please, if you could have her help you, I would really appreciate it. She has potential, and she is a good girl." "David, I would be delighted, Principal Nizu." "Nizu, All Might, would you be so kind as to take them to the general classes room? I want to speak privately with young Midoriya." All Might nodded his head and left the place with David and Melissa. Nizu put on a serious look and said, "Well, young Izuku, now you can tell me the whole truth. I promise I won't say anything you tell me. It will be a secret between you and me." Izuku, "Okay, I'll tell him everything." The freckled boy went on to tell Nizu the whole truth about the different futures he had seen, but how they all ended the same way. Nizu was certainly surprised to hear the freaked boy's whole story. "Nizu, I see, so in the end he ends up winning. That's why you decided to leave UA. You want to get away from all your friends so as not to involve them in the futures you saw. Isn't that right?" Izuku just nodded his head. "Nizu, I didn't know you were carrying all that." "Izuku, don't worry, Director Nizu. Nizu, it must be very difficult for you to see your friends die over and over again." Izuku just lowered his gaze, reflecting great sadness. "Nizu, I know you will be able to find that destiny where all for one is defeated." The rodent gave Izuku a warm smile. "Izuku, thank you, Director. For now I'm going out for a walk for a while, I need to clear my mind." "Nizu, sure, I understand, your bedroom is already prepared. Since his home was destroyed, he has nowhere else to go. And this place is safer for you." "Izuku, thank you very much, Director." After saying that, the freckled man left the office and began to walk away from the campus. This one was walking through that kind of forest that was there before arriving at the UA. Izuku looked down, but was stopped by a voice he already knew. He turned around and found Jairu, who was playing with her jacks, spinning them on her fingers. Izuku, what do you want, Jairu? Jairu, well, I just want to know the reason behind the sadness in your words. Izuku, I don't know what you're talking about. He turned around to leave. Jairu, you don't love her anymore? Izuku stopped dead in his tracks at that question. Jairu, you don't love Momo anymore? Izuku, no, I don't love her. Jairu, you're lying. Izuku, TCH, say what you want, I already told you the truth. Jairu, that's a lie, you didn't tell me the truth, Midoriya, you're just lying. And that doesn't work with me, and you know it very well. My jacks allow me to detect when someone is lying. Basically, you can't fool me. Izuku, what do you want? Jairu, why did you distance yourself from Momo? You don't know how much he suffered since you left. Not a day has gone by that she doesn't regret saying no to you that night. For her, you are what she loves most in this life. She stopped being a Yaoyorozu just for you. You don't know how many times he has cried. Izuku, do you know how it feels to watch the woman you love die over and over and over again? Jairu, oh, what do you mean by that? Izuku, my quirk allows me to see the future. I've seen Momo die in front of my eyes over and over and over again. Do you have any bucking idea what that feels like? Wow. Tears fell from the freckled man's eyes. I saw all my friends and Momo died before my eyes. I tried to change the future so many times that my body became scarred. The freckled man took off his shirt, revealing the scars all over his body. Jairu couldn't believe what she was seeing. Izuku, for every time I die a scar appears on my body. I have died so many times and seen Momo die so many times that my soul is screaming for it all to end. Every time I see her I want to hug her and kiss her. I love her with all my heart. But if I can't change his destiny, then why live a lie? I distanced myself from everyone so as not to involve them. I couldn't bear to see them die again, not anymore. I couldn't anymore. The freckled man's voice became increasingly choppy. That pain and sadness accompanied by the frustration she felt came out in the form of tears that filled her soul. Jairu had some tears on her cheeks because of what she had heard. Izuku, if I have to give my life to change the future of all my friends and the woman I love, then I will do it without thinking twice. I don't want to live a life where Momo isn't by my side. If that were the case, it wouldn't be living, it would be dead in life. In that, Izuku would be hugged from behind. He turned around, meeting the brunette who hugged him with tears in her eyes. Momo, so that's what you were carrying? Baka. You don't have to carry all that. I can't stand to be another minute without being by your side. I can't stand being without the person I love anymore. Izuku just opened his eyes wide. Momo. Momo gave Izuku a big kiss on her lips. In that kiss she was able to express what she really felt for him. Izuku kissed back as if his life depended on the brunette's lips. Tears fell from Momo's cheeks. She wrapped her arm around Izuku's neck. Izuku held her tighter against his body, fulfilling the promise he had made in the other reality. Jairu saw this with a slight smile because she was happy for her friend and the green-haired man. As they parted, Momo said, I love you, Izuku, forgive me for that night. Izuku wiped away her tears as he hugged her tightly. Momo, we can change our destiny together. If necessary, we will create it together. But I don't want to be separated from you anymore. Besides, you're not alone, Izuku. From the trees surrounding them emerged Mina, Kirishima, Kendo, Nijire, and Todoroki. Mina, with tears in her eyes, said, You don't have to carry all that weight by yourself, Izuku. We're friends, right? And friends never abandon each other no matter what happens. Kirishima approached Izuku with some tears, saying, I'm sorry, Izuku, I didn't know you were carrying all that. But you should have told us at least that we will fight together, and if we fail, we will all do it together. Izuku, Kirishima. Todoroki, so what's the plan, Midoriya? Nijire, we will follow you no matter what the destination. Momo intertwined her fingers with Izuku's in a tender handshake as she said, Now we are together, no matter what happens we will be with you. I will hold your hand until the end, and if necessary I will die for the person I love. Izuku just looked at his friends with watery eyes. Izuku gave a smile saying, I'm counting on you guys. Without realizing it, a person who was behind the trees had heard everything, after which he left the place. Chapter 34, Deku's Betrayal. Izuku and the boys had returned to the academy. The freckled boy returned holding the brunette's hand. Mina and Kirishima were happy because finally those two could be together. Upon arriving at the academy they ran into Bakugo, who only approached Izuku and said, I'm glad you're back, friend. After saying that, the blonde went to her room. Izuku asked the boys not to tell the rest that this would be a secret between them. They acknowledged their heads. After that, Nijire bombarded Izuku with questions regarding the new quirks he showed. The freckled man explained, omitting much of the truth. After that, the light blue-haired girl went to her room with a big smile. Izuku's teammates were glad to have him back, so much so that they held a small celebration for his return. The questions were not long in coming, as everyone wanted to know about the new power he showed against Nuclear. Izuku told them the same thing as Nijire. A brunette, seeing that Momo hugged Izuku the whole time, asked, Izuku-kun, are you and Momo dating? Izuku was about to answer, but Momo was the one who spoke, saying, Yes, Izuku and I have a relationship. These words made the freckled boy blush and surprised the rest of the class. But for Todoroki, Mina, Kirishima and Jiru it wasn't so much a surprise because they already saw their relationship coming. Uraraka, I see that's good for you. The brown-haired girl showed a slight smile. After a while the boys talked about various things until night came and each one went to their respective bedrooms. Izuku went to his bedroom accompanied by Momo, who told him that she would sleep with him. At first the freckled man refused, but then he accepted. The boys were now lying down. Momo was resting her head against the green-haired boy's chest. She had a big smile on her face. Momo, I'm happy that we can finally be together, Izuku. The black-haired girl snuggled closer to the freckled boy. Izuku caressed Momo's hair. Izuku, I'm also happy to be by your side, Momo. Momo approached the freckled boy's lips and gave him a passionate kiss on the lips. The freckled boy only gently held her waist, holding her closer to his body. Both of their faces were very flushed, but they continued with their kiss. When they separated, Momo would say, I love you, Izuku. I love you with all my heart. The black-haired girl gave him a warm smile. Izuku only kissed her even more intensely. Izuku, I love you more, my princess. Momo blushed at those words, but she was undoubtedly happy to be with the person she loved the most. The young people fell asleep hugging each other, because their relationship was finally official and there was nothing to stop them. The next day Izuku went to the workshop where things were made for each student's outfits, because he was summoned to that place by David. He was accompanied by Momo, and upon arrival he met David, Melissa and May Hatsum. David, you finally arrived, boy. We already have your suit. Izuku, huh, so fast? David, well, we were so excited that we worked all night without stopping, he said as he let out a small laugh. Melissa and May had become very close because they had a lot in common. They seemed like best friends. May, you must be Izuku Midoriya. Without a doubt, making your suit with them was the best thing that ever happened to me. Melissa showed Izuku the suit. It was the same as the one from Season 4, with gloves on his hands so he could shoot air bullets, and some holes for the black whips, but this one looked more like the gloves Melissa gave him in the first movie. Not to mention that it had several different details than the original suit. This one had a kind of bracelet on his forearm. Izuku, and what is this for? Melissa, you see, it will indicate when you activate your quirk and how many times you use it, among other things. The suit was definitely amazing. David, the fabric of the suit is made of an alloy capable of withstanding the power of 1 for all at 100%, just like the gloves. They are quite resistant so they won't break easily. You can use all your power without having to break your arms. All Might told us that your body could not fully stand 1 for all. The soles of your boots are made of an extremely hard metal. You will be able to give very powerful kicks and do more damage. Izuku was fascinated by the suit. Momo, Izuku, what is 1 for all? The brunette didn't know anything about that. May, it's true they mentioned it so much, but I don't know what it is. Is that your quirk? Izuku. He quickly changed the subject by asking if he could try on the suit. After a few minutes, Izuku could be seen wearing the suit. Momo was amazed to see the freckled boy in the new suit. He certainly looked different. Izuku feels very light. David, I told you so. Izuku, thank you very much, I can't wait to put it into practice. David, well, let's go to the gym. The director gave us permission to use it. Izuku, okay, let's go. Within a few minutes they would be in the gym. Izuku, one for all 100% the rays began to leave his body abruptly colliding with each other. Izuku launched a powerful punch, causing a huge air pressure to hit the entire place, destroying a large part of the gym. David was surprised because the power Izuku demonstrated seemed to be more than All Might in his prime. Izuku was impressed his body was still intact, the suit had absorbed all the impact. Melissa, now try using the black whips. Izuku nodded his head. He concentrated on bringing out the black whips from his suit. Momo looked at Izuku with a big gleam in her eyes. Izuku returned to normal, thanking David, Melissa and May for the suit. The latter asked him for one last favor. Izuku, Dr. David, you could create a room capable of resisting any quirk at 100%. David, to do that I would have to have the bearers of those quirks use their power to help me create the room, that is, make it so that it can withstand their impacts. Izuku, that won't be a problem, just tell me if you could do it and how long it will take. David thought about it for a moment and said, maybe a day and a half here at the UA has enough things. Izuku, please, I beg you. David, okay kid, leave it to me. May, will you join us? May, I would be happy to do so. Izuku took off his suit and left the place with the brunette. When noon came, Izuku's little group got together for lunch, and to everyone's surprise, Bakugo didn't say a single word throughout the entire lunch. He just had a thoughtful look, as if his mind was somewhere else. After lunch, Mina and Momo went to their room to talk. Bakugo went to his room. Izuku left the academy to head to a small beach with a beautiful view of the sea. The freckled boy sat on the sand. At that point, Liz physically appeared to Izuku. Izuku, I didn't know you could manifest as an illusion. Liz hit him on the head, saying, you think I'm an illusion, Baka? Izuku, ouch. That did hurt me. I'm sorry. Liz just let out a small laugh. She sat next to Izuku. Liz, I'm glad that you and that girl finally became a couple. It was about time, don't you think, haha? Izuku didn't say anything. Liz, well, the countdown has already started and we only have 4 days until the end of everything. And you still haven't found the right destination. Izuku, I know. Liz, well, among so many destinations it is difficult to find the right one. She got up and approached the seashore because she was barefoot. Izuku, what are you doing? Liz, I want to feel the water on my feet. It's the first time I've come to the beach. Liz just showed a smile as her feet got wet from the sea water. Izuku, seeing her smile, felt as if his sorrows and frustrations were gone. Izuku, Liz, you knew that all destinations have a pattern. Liz, and what is that pattern? Izuku, that everyone dies first, and I'm always the last. Not to mention that my friends are the first to arrive at the place. Liz didn't say anything. Izuku, you know I've already found the right destination, right? Liz just remained silent. Izuku, well, let's enjoy our last days together. After all, it will be the last time. The freckled boy showed a big smile. Liz only shed a couple of tears when she saw it. After a while, Izuku returned to the academy. In this way, 2 days had passed and David had been able to create the room requested by the freckled man. Izuku had told all his companions, except for Momo, Uraraka, Toru, Mineta, Koda, Tsuyu, Siro, Shoji, the rest were told to enter the room and use their quirk at 100% of their capacity. The boys didn't understand why, but they listened to the freckled boy. The room played its part to the fullest as it managed to repel everyone's attacks without any problem. The boys were unable to do any damage to the room. Izuku, it's perfect for training. The freckled man again thanked David for everything. After that, he entered the room to train with the boys because he had to master the black whips, levitation, and object manipulation. He was able to hire him at will, and with the help of his companions, he gave him an idea of how to best handle the black whips. There were only 2 days left until the beginning of everything. Izuku woke up agitated at night because the former bearers of One for All showed him the story of how everything had happened. Not to mention that the images of his dead comrades plagued his mind. Momo noticed this and hugged him to calm him down, as she began to sleep next to him every night. Izuku calmed down quite a bit seeing the brunette safe and sound. After the different futures he had seen, he no longer knew if he was in the correct reality or not. The 3rd day had passed and the voice of the first bearer was present in the freckled man's head. He told him, "He will wake up soon and come for you, Izuku." The day where everything would be decided had arrived. It was 10 in the morning. We can see a large number of heroes who were surrounding a large old building which was in the middle of a forest. Well, they had found All for One's lair. Detective Tsukachi was in charge of the operation. Endeavor, Hawks, Mirko, Ryukyu, Midnight among other heroes were present, even the big 3 were there. This was not reported to the rest of the academy. The only ones who knew about this were All Might and the director. Aisawa, after seeing what happened that time, was willing to give his life to his offspring, so he was more than prepared to face the same death in that place. Nisa asked All Might not to participate in this, that there are heroes capable of fighting All for One. Not to mention the time limit All Might had. Izuku was aware of the situation because he had seen it coming. He asked his teammates to train one last time in the room, but now all together, which seemed strange to everyone. The freckled boy asked All Might to also enter the room. Surprised by his successor's request, he agreed to enter. Once inside, Izuku looked at all his companions and thanked them for everything. He looked at Momo and gave her a big kiss on her lips. "Momo, Izuku, are you okay?" "Izuku, if nothing happens." He headed towards the door of the room to close it, as he always did when training. But this time Izuku, standing in front of the door, turned his gaze to see everyone one last time and say, "Thanks for everything, guys. Momo, I love you with all my heart." After saying that, the freckled man quickly left the room, closing it completely from the outside. Completely enclosing his companions. The freckled boy left the academy. Outside was Director Nisa, who said, "You finally did it, kid." "Izuku, this was the only thing I could think of, Director." They could see a large explosion in the distance. At that, the voice of the first bearer said, "Izuku has already woken up." Izuku put on a serious look, saying, "It's time to change everyone's destiny. One for all, 100%. After saying that, the freckled man jumped away from the place. Chapter 35, Eli's Decision. Nizu, seeing the freckled man walk away, said, "Life can certainly be so hard at times that it will make your soul bleed. Sometimes you will have to make decisions that require great willpower. Not everyone can do it, but boy, you are without a doubt the best hero I have ever seen. Carrying the fate of your friends' deaths on your back, dying as many times as necessary to rewrite a new story, and still being able to keep smiling knowing that death awaits you and that you will no longer be able to see the woman you love without a doubt. It requires a big heart and a big will." Minutes before the explosion, we can see how the heroes were quite injured, as they were facing a high-end Nomus army. All this was happening inside a large abandoned building in the middle of a forest on the outskirts of the city. Sir Night-Eye and Mirio were running through one of the building's hallways. Well, this one had several ground floors. The other heroes were in the upper parts because that was where they were taken by surprise by the Nomus army. Without a doubt, they already knew they were going to go to that place. Mirio and Sir Night-Eye were able to enter the building and began to search for the doctor's laboratory because they had discovered that he was responsible for the creation of the Nomus. Outside was certainly a mess. A bloody battle was being fought against those beasts. Mirio, damn, this hallway seems endless. Sir Night-Eye just had a serious look on his face, and in his thoughts he would say, "All Might, I will change your destiny, you will not die." We can see Nijire quite injured and with blood on her head, as she and Ryukyu were fighting against one of the Nomes. This one was giving them quite a fight, since not even in his dragon form was Ryukyu able to contain the brute force of that beast. Mount Lady was in her giant form crushing several Nomes. On the other hand, strong explosions were seen from Endeavor, who had quite a few injuries and was fighting against 3 Nomes twice as strong as All Might faced. Isawa was fighting side by side with Present Mike, and Kamui holding back a few Nomes. Edge Shot and Sniper were showing their skill against those beasts. The hero Yori Musha, Fat Gum and Rock Lock and other heroes were in action. The Wild Hussycats were equally on the battlefield, giving their best in the fight. We can see a beautiful rabbit that was running at high speed only to take a great leap, raise her right leg and land a brutal kick on the skull of one of the Nomes, taking his life instantly. Mirko had a big smile on his face as he knew he wouldn't have to hold back against those beasts. Mirio and Sir Night Eye had reached the top floor of the ground floor building. They saw that there was a large laboratory down there. It was somewhat dark, but they were still alert. They found the doctor who, upon seeing him, tried to escape, but Mirio caught him. Sir Night Eye could see that in the middle of the room there was a large computer which showed the percentage of something that was being done. As he got closer, the doctor told him not to touch anything. As he got closer, he couldn't help but take a step back when he saw that in a large tube filled with some kind of green liquid was All for One with a younger body. The disfigured face he had before was now normal, well, at least half of it. I understood that what the computer was showing was the percentage of All for One's recovery, which was 75% recovered. Sir Night Eye, he can't be. We must stop the process as soon as possible. This destroyed the computer and unplugged all the cables that were connected to the regeneration tube. Dr. No. But what have you done? You should not have interrupted his process now. He will not be able to wake up since I had to induce him into a coma state. Sir Night Eye, you better fall asleep and never wake up. I will inform the rest of the heroes that All for One will not be a problem. He saw how Cementos and Gran Torino had arrived at the place. Cements, I see you found it. Sir Night Eye, yes, according to this guy he said that he is in a coma. Cementos and Gran Torino were surprised to see how younger and recovered All for One was. Gran Torino, it certainly looks like it did when. I remembered when All for One had killed Nana Shimura. Gran Torino just clenched his fists in frustration as he saw All for One's face again. At that point they saw how the liquid in that capsule began to make many bubbles. The doctor would smile and say, "Heroes, you only accelerated your own death." In that All for One there would be his right eye since the other half was still disfigured. Cementos quickly created a cement prison protecting Gran Torino, Sir Night Eye, the doctor and himself. After doing so, a huge explosion occurred, destroying the entire building. On the other hand, at the UA, more exactly in the room where Izuku had locked his friends, they were trying to get out but everything they did was in vain. Momo, Izuku, please open the door. Don't do this to me. Izuku. Please. Open the door, love. Don't do this to me. I don't want to lose you, not again. The brunette had begun to cry. Well, now everything made sense as to why he had asked David to make that room that could support everyone's quirk. He understood that from the beginning he was going to betray them. Kaken, damn Deku. Why the buck are you doing this to us? The blonde was hitting the room in frustration. Why didn't I realize this before? Why oh. Mina also had tears in her eyes. All Might, he decided to face his destiny alone. At those words everyone looked at All Might. Momo, what do you mean by that? All Might. At this moment several heroes went to confront All for One, because they found where he was hiding. The blonde lifted his shirt, revealing his wound. Everyone watched this in amazement. All Might, this wound was caused by him. I lost almost all my organs, I can barely breathe and eat thanks to several surgeries. Young Izuku decided this was for the best. I heard what he was carrying, he certainly did his best to keep you from fighting. He decided to face that monster alone. In other words, he is determined to give his life in this fight, so as not to see you die. Momo couldn't help but shed more tears upon hearing that. All Might, I chose young Izuku to be my successor, to be the new symbol of peace. At these words, everyone was surprised. Outside the room were Melissa and David unconscious, as this was Izuku's doing. Director Nizu was outside the academy, and he would say, "It's funny, isn't it? He betrays his friends and you are going to betray him. Isn't that right?" Miss Momo Yaoyorozu. Chapter 36, For the Sprouts I Loved So Much. Eli, so you knew, didn't you, Director Nizu? Nizu, well, besides having an intelligence beyond the normal, it is easy to realize people's intentions. When I saw young Izuku and what he told me, it was easy to see how this would all end. But that was his decision, and his will, so I couldn't do anything else. Eli, betray him, right? You have a plan up your sleeve, don't you? Nizu just gave a smile, saying, I can't let just one person bear the fate of everything, especially someone who has already suffered too much in this life. Eli just smiled at those words. Nizu, you saw what was going to happen, right? She did that time when young Izuku hugged her, right? Eli, so I realized. Nizu, well, I did some research on you, but I never thought you would make the decision to betray Izuku. Eli, sometimes you can't choose who you're going to fall in love with, you just fall in love and that's it. And with those emotions in your heart, you are able to make the most difficult decisions, and I just want to see him happy, so I will do whatever it takes to protect your life, your happiness, to protect that smile that I love so much. Nizu, I see. So we must get going and act before it is too late. Eli just nodded his head while bringing his right hand to his chest. On the other hand, returning to the heroes who were fighting outside the building in part of the forest were sent flying by the shock wave from the explosion of the building. The shock wave embraced a large part of the place in seconds. Isawa, no way. Mirio, Sir Naitai, Cementos and Gran Torino were in there. A large curtain of dust was over the place. The Nomus had stopped at what had happened. Everyone was paying attention to the curtain of dust, from which Gran Torino emerged making great leaps, charging Sir Naitai and Mirio, dodging several air bullets. One of the air bullets pierced Gran Torino's leg, causing him to fall to the ground. From the curtain of dust came flying out in large numbers. Cement held the doctor's unconscious body in his arms. Cementos crashed brutally into several trees in the forest. A laugh was heard throughout the place. The heroes felt a fear that paralyzed their bodies in a matter of seconds. Nijire, what is this fear I feel? My legs aren't responding to me. They sharpened their vision and saw red and black rays coming out of the curtain of dust, colliding with each other. Isawa, what we feared has already come true. Endeavor, who had defeated the Nomus he was fighting with, was seriously injured, but still remained standing. He could feel the pressure that strained the entire environment. Hawks, who was flying through the air to see what was happening, suddenly spat out a lot of blood. For from the curtain of dust a taste of air had emerged at high speed which had passed through Hawk's stomach. He collapsed to the ground with his eyes rolled back. A voice was heard throughout the place. Voice, it feels so good to be back. How odd. I don't feel the presence of the number one hero. Where is the peace symbol? Where is All Might? Perhaps. Did he escape his inevitable death? In the end. Fear them and flee from him. But destiny always arrives. Or should I say I'm already here? This society needs to be restored. I will create a new era where heroes do not exist. Well, the first thing I'll do is get back what belongs to me. Izuku Midoriya, wait for me. Isawa, hearing that name, said, I won't allow you to touch any of my children. After the curtain of dust disappeared, All for One could be seen standing, revealing its new state. Everyone was speechless, seeing how he was younger, and how half of his face was disfigured and the other half was fine. His hair was white and his eyes were red with black irises. He had a somewhat toned body, but his mere presence imposed a lot of pressure and fear. He just looked at every hero who was there. The nomas, upon seeing their master, stood behind him by instinct. Everyone saw how above all for one was a certain rabbit with a look full of hate. She had her leg raised. "Mirko, this is for my friend Hawks." The rabbit landed a powerful kick with all its strength, but everyone was greatly surprised to see how a circular barrier appeared over All for One's head, taking the full impact. All for One only had his palm raised and would say, "Oh, did you really think you were going to be able to touch me, you filthy damn rabbit?" Mirko only exerted more pressure with his leg. Rage and hatred could be seen in his eyes as he saw how a friend of his had fallen. "All for One, you're in my way." After saying that, Mirko was sent flying due to a powerful explosion from All for One. Mirko was left in a very critical condition. Ryukyu caught Rumi, who was barely conscious. She saw how Endeavor got ahead of All for One. She understood what he was about to do and quickly retreated. "All for One, do you think you can hurt me?" Hero number 2, Endeavor. Endeavor began to raise all the heat of his flames while saying, "Incandescent Fist. Hell Spiper." The entire attack hit All for One, causing a huge explosion, incinerating a large part of the area. The rest just took cover from the explosion. While at UA, Eli was walking with Director Niza through the halls. The rodent was carrying a briefcase with him. Upon reaching the room where Izuku had locked his friends, they saw David and Melissa unconscious. Eli just walked up to the door, and in his hand he had a small device which he placed on the door. "Eli, back off, Director Niza." They took several steps back. The door exploded abruptly without leaving a trace of it. The boys inside saw this with joy, thinking it was Izuku, but they saw how outside the room was Eli with Director Niza. Everyone left quickly. "Momo, Eli, what are you doing here?" "Eli, there's no time for questions. We're running out of time to help Izuku." "All Might, I will go fight this one. They will need my help." "Director, I give orders to the boys." "Nizu, I see there's no way to stop you, right?" "All Might, I can't let him carry all of this alone. Maybe this is my last fight, so." Class 1A felt great pain upon hearing this. All Might gave them a smile, saying, "Everything is fine now." "Why? Why am I here?" After saying that, he ran at high speed through the corridors. "Nizu, well, I'll explain the plan to you. Izuku doesn't want you guys to go to the battlefield, but the plan will not work without you." He opened the briefcase he had in his hand, showing its contents. "Kaken, that's it? Nizu, this is how we will defeat All for One." Returning to the battlefield after the explosion produced by Endeavor's attack, a large curtain of dust covered the place again. When it disappeared, it could be seen that in front of All for One were several nomas, or what was left of them, since they had received the entire attack. All for One's body was barely letting off steam. End of air, damn it. All for One, was that there? I honestly expected more from you. He was about to make his move when he took several steps, dodging waves of joy from a certain light blue-haired girl who could barely stay standing. All for One, if I remember correctly, you are Nijire Hado, right? Your quirk is of no use to me, so I'll just kill you. He raised his hand, and in milliseconds a large bullet of air was shot towards the blue-haired girl. She didn't even have time to react. Before that scene, through Isawa's eyes everything happened in slow motion. Isawa, seeing Nijire, remembered when she saw her for the first time. Long time ago. My name is Shoyuta Isawa and I will be your class teacher. A light blue-haired girl raised her hand and asked. Sensei, what kind of quirk do you have? Why do your eyes look tired? What motivated you to become a hero? At first I thought she had no potential to be a hero, but seeing her struggle to master the use of her quirk made me change my mind. Her curiosity, without me realizing it, began to change me as the days went by. I saw her grow like a heroine until she was considered a professional heroine. That smile and determination that he always showed was what changed my life forever. That's why I want her to continue showing more of that curiosity of hers, to enjoy life and be happy. Mirio, Tamaki, Nijire showed me another point of view in this life. I want all three of them to graduate as pro-heroes and fulfill their dreams. They were part of my offspring and always will be. That's why I can't let his dream end here. And it was at that moment that I felt my mind go blank again and my body moved on its own. Nijire could only watch in slow motion as drops of blood were in the air. Tears began to fall from her eyes as she said, Aisawa-sensei. Chapter 37. I will save you, friend. Bakugo's determination. Everyone saw how Aisawa's chest was pierced by that taste of air. This callus collapsed to the ground. Nijire with several tears knelt holding her sensei while saying, Sensei. Why did he do it? Aisawa, you guys are still my kids. The pro. I will protect you with my own life, and you can't die here. Nijire-sensei. The light blue-haired girl's voice began to cut through a lump of emotions that were in her throat. Mirio-sensei. Present Mike, upon seeing his partner fall, couldn't help but feel devastated inside, since the two of them had been good friends since high school. All for one, oh Hero Eraserhead, you are so cool for saying those words. But it's a shame you can't continue protecting your children. Everyone here will die at my hands. It's time for me to show you that trash like you can never beat me. Everyone watched as the rubble of the building on which All for One was standing began to disintegrate at high speed. The deterioration spread rapidly, disintegrating everything in its path. Seeing this, the heroes began to run quickly. Nijire carried Aisawa in her arms and started running as best she could. Gran Torino carried whoever he could and started jumping. Endeavor carried Hawk's body and flew off at high speed with his flames. Ryukyu in his dragon form carried whoever he could while taking flight. Other heroes ran as best they could. The hero Yorimusha and other not-so-recognized heroes could not escape the shock wave of deterioration, so in a matter of seconds they were disintegrated. The shock wave was about to reach Nijire and the other heroes who were on the ground. Gran Torino saw all this while he was making great leaps to escape the damage. In that, the heroes who were in the air saw a flash of green energy pass at high speed between them. All for One saw this and gave a big smile. Nijire and the other heroes who were on the ground were held by black whips, remaining suspended out of the reach of the deterioration. Nijire recognized those whips and quickly looked ahead. One word was heard clearly. SSSSSMAASSHHHH. After that word, a large amount of wind whipped the entire place, and All for One flew out at high speed because he had received the full blow. Gran Torino, but if it is Mirio Izuku. The green-haired man had green rays coming out of his body, in addition to having the black whips active, but there was something else. Like that time, her hair was white and her eyes were blue. Izuku heard a barely audible word. Midoriya. Izuku, upon hearing that voice, his eyes opened wide. He turned around to see his teacher, seriously injured and on the verge of death, in Nijire's arms. Izuku, Aisawa-san. Sensei. Aisawa-s sorry to tell the whole class. Why I won't be able to be with you anymore. Tears fell from the green-haired boy's eyes as he saw his teacher die before his eyes. Nijire-s sensei, wake up. Please. Wake up. Sensei. The blue-haired girl let out a heart-wrenching scream as tears fell from her eyes. All the other heroes witnessed the scene. Press-set Mike had tears falling down his cheeks. Izuku stood still in the same place with his watery eyes. The rays from his body began to intensify more and more. All for One landed in front of Izuku saying, That hit wasn't bad at all, but it's time for you to give me back one for all. Izuku was about to jump back but saw a sound wave hit All for One hard. Izuku, this quirk is from. He saw where the attack came from, seeing that it was produced by Press-set Mike, who used his quirk to the maximum, hitting All for One, who covered his ears and knelt down a little at the powerful sound. Pixie Bob, with 2 pillars of earth, he trapped All for One, hitting him on both sides. Endeavor stood to one side of him, charging a powerful flame again to shoot at All for One. Izuku felt something different and said, Get out of here. From All for One's back came out 4 long columns at the tips of which looked like the mouth of a dragon. To give you an idea, it's like the 1-9 used in the movie, which grabbed Izuku, Endeavor, Pixie Bob, Present Mike by the neck, lifting them into the air. All for one now? Mirio came out from under the ground to hit him, but a barrier stopped Mirio's blow. Mirio, damn! All for one just raised his hand, hitting a powerful gust of wind, sending Mirio flying. He looked up to see a rabbit jump several times in different places, landing a powerful kick that broke the columns coming out of its back. All for one, so you're still alive, you filthy rabbit. Nijire attacked with powerful energy waves, but the energy barrier stopped them as if it were nothing. Mount Lady in her giant form crushed All for One with her fist, creating a large crater. Izuku activated One for All at 100% throughout his body and took a great leap towards Mount Lady, because in front of his face was All for One, who had moved at such great speed that Mount Lady could not even see him. When he noticed her presence, it was too late. He gave her a powerful blow to the face, causing the heroine to fall with her face covered in blood and her eyes rolled back. Izuku positioned himself behind him, spinning around and hitting him with a powerful kick in the face with all his power. This didn't give him time to cover himself, sending All for One brutally to the ground. Izuku's leg had been shattered because his body could not adapt to One for All. The freckled boy fell, feeling great pain. But in his eyes a clock appeared, his hands moving backwards, causing Izuku's leg to return to normal. He looked up, showing a great shine in his eyes. All for One stood up again while laughing, saying, "That's it, Izuku Midoriya, I want you to entertain me a little. I will enjoy killing you little by little." All for One raised his right arm, which began to be covered with several muscle fibers. Seeing this, Izuku said, "That's it. All for One, musculus exact quirk." Both Izuku and All for One launched themselves at high speed, colliding their fists, creating a powerful gust of wind, destroying the entire place. Yui Niza had explained the entire plan to the boys. Class 1A and B for the first time joined forces for this fight that threatened everyone's lives. Melissa and David had regained consciousness. When Melissa Bakugo woke up, she asked him if what he had asked for was ready. The beautiful blonde said yes. Bakugo just gave a smile, saying, "Perfect, there's no time to waste." Nizu, well, you guys are the hope that this will all end. Good luck, guys. All the boys were in their hero costumes, and they rushed to the place. Uraraka used her quirk on everyone, making those who could move at high speed carry them so it would be faster to get to the place. Clinging to Ida, they left: Uraraka, Jairu, Mina, Momo, Kaminari. Other boys left with Shoto. The 2 classes left with the plan in mind. Bakugo flew out with his explosions at high speed, saying, "Now it's my turn to save you, Deku. I won't let you die, my friend." Chapter 38: Deku's Limit, the symbol of peace versus the symbol of evil. All Might, who was in the air almost reaching the place, saw how in the distance 2 flashes of energy, one green and the other red with black, collided with each other. He immediately knew that it was the collision between One for All and All for One. All Might, hold on a little longer, Shonen. On the battlefield, Izuku would fall at high speed, brutally hitting the ground and spitting blood. All for One landed on the side of him, cracking the ground. Izuku had several wounds on his body that began to heal little by little, while he was breathing heavily. All for One, that's it, get up again, hero. Give me more fight. All for One was about to deliver a powerful blow to Izuku, but when he threw the blow, the one who received the blow was Fat Gum, who spat out a little blood at the power of that blow, taking a step back. All for One, wow, I see you were able to stand one of my hits. Fat Gum, I won't let you touch the boy, I'll be his shield. All for One, then he takes all the hits for him. After saying that, he began to hit him repeatedly. Fat Gum held on as best he could, while he was saying to himself in his thoughts, "I will absorb every blow you give me, but I need to expend a lot of energy to do so. So I burn a lot of fat, and I defend myself worse and worse. But your concentrated impacts will be a spear that breaks any shield, but the problem is that it wore out my shield too much. I won't have time to release what I've accumulated." All for One increased more muscle fiber now in both arms, starting to hit with more power. Now Fat Gum could barely withstand the blows and understood why he was so afraid. All for One, the next hit will be your end. He charged all his strength in his right arm to hit him, but his arm was stopped by some black whips. Izuku was standing behind Fat Gum and he said, "Thank you very much, but I won't let anyone else die." All for One watched in amazement as behind Izuku were the ancient bearers. The rays came out of his body stronger than before. "Izuku, even if my body is destroyed or broken into 1,000 pieces, I will defeat you." The freckled man at high speed imposed himself against All for One, who from his back took out a dragon column to catch Izuku, but the freckled man dodged it. "Izuku, I will go beyond my 100%. One for all 150%. The gloves David had made for him had completely shattered, leaving Izuku's entire arm exposed. Detroit Smash. All for One put up a barrier to nullify the impact. Izuku hit with all his might, managing to break it, hitting him in the face. All for One flew out at high speed. Izuku's arm was completely purple. All for One recovered in the air and fell to the ground, his feet hitting the ground hard. Izuku saw how a rabbit made a great leap and was next to All for One, taking him by surprise. Mirko spun around and landed a powerful kick to his side, causing him to spit blood. Mirko took a great leap away from him as he said, "Make it Endeavor." Endeavor was behind All for One. He had a powerful attack charged. All for One raised his hand to shoot air blasts at him, but was caught wrapped in several roots. Kamui, who was barely standing, said, "Fire that attack." "Endeavor, take it is." Izuku opened his eyes wide as he saw how Kamui and Endeavor had been pierced by steel thorns that had come out of the ground. Endeavor had his abdomen pierced, Kamui had both legs and his chest pierced. Thorns had come out in several places. "Mirko, NNP can it be?" The rabbit spat out quite a bit of blood, so it was no surprise that his chest had been pierced, particularly near the heart area. Well, All for One had managed to free one of his hands, and with a taste of air he pierced his chest. When pierced, Kamui had released All for One. Izuku couldn't believe what he was seeing. "All for One, well, I finally got over scum like that. Now we can continue our fight." Endeavor was standing and seeing everything blurry, while he kept spitting blood. Mirko had collapsed to the ground and began to bleed from his wounds. Izuku only heard a scream coming from behind him. When I recognized this, I couldn't help but get worried quickly. He saw how Nijire had tears in her eyes, because in front of her was Tamaki pierced by the thorns, because he had protected the light blue-haired girl. Tamaki I. Nijire, and no T Tamaki. Thorns were sprouting from the ground all around the area. This had taken everyone by surprise. Two of the members of the Wild Hussycats were also seriously injured. Ryukyu was safe because she was in the air, as well as Gran Torino and a few other heroes. All for One, wow, how much useless blood has been shed this day. Mirio had activated his quirk in time, managing to save Sir Night Tai, who was unconscious, Cementos protecting himself with cement pillars. Midnight, who was on top of Ryukyu, would say, "That guy is a monster." "Izuku, take back what you said." In the freckled man's eyes there was only accumulated anger. Nana in her head would say, "You have to control yourself, Izuku. If you lose control, you know what will happen." Izuku's entire suit was torn apart in a matter of seconds. All for One, oh, the little hero got angry because I told him that the death of these heroes is useless. They thought they could stop me, All for One, but not even All Might could stop me. What makes you think you can? The black whips began to come out of Izuku, losing control. Gran Torino saw this, and knew he had to get him away from the battlefield. Izuku, you have to control yourself, otherwise. All the heroes who were still standing saw how several objects began to levitate in the air. All for One, perfect. Eat with everything. Meanwhile, Kaken, who was propelling himself with his explosions, would remember David's words before they left the academy. "David, they have to help Izuku and prevent him from getting hurt." It is true that his quirk allows him to heal at great speed, but this also has its disadvantage. It takes a lot of the user's energy, and the more wounds he has, the worse his physical wear and tear will be, and there will come to a point where his quirk stops healing him, and when that happens, any wound will be fatal for him. That's why you have to go to him and inject this substance into his neck, he said while handing him an injectable with a purple liquid. This is an energy-boosting and cellular tissue repair liquid. It will help him heal and give him more energy, at least until his quirk works again on him. I trust you, Bakugo. Go and save your friend, be a hero. Izuku threw all the objects that were floating in the air at All For One. They flew out at high speed. All For One just stood still and extended his right hand, in which a yellow circle appeared. With a powerful taste of air, it destroyed the objects, raising a large curtain of dust. Izuku disappeared into the dust, appearing in front of All For One. Gran Torino saw this with a bad feeling. This one at high speed headed towards where Izuku was. As it was about to enter the curtain of dust, it was sent flying by a powerful wind pressure which dispersed the dust in a matter of seconds. Gran Torino recovered only to see the worst scene before his eyes. Nijire Izuku. All For One, hero is over. Everyone saw how All For One's right arm was piercing Izuku's left pectoral. The freckled man just spat out a large amount of blood. All For One only had a big smile on his face, but something caught his attention because he had a large steel bar piercing the side of his abdomen. Not bad, kid. But this is over. One for all is mine now. He began to bring his left hand closer to Izuku's face to steal one for all, but a voice caught his attention. Voice, you forgot about me, and that was your worst mistake. All For One looked to his right side, finding Fat Gum, who was thin and in his hand had a large amount of accumulated energy. Far Gum, save the Gran Torino boy. Gran Torino, despite having his leg injured, made several jumps at high speed, managing to take Izuku out of All For One's hands. Fat Gum, take this, you damn hitch. He launched his powerful blow, All For One protecting himself with an energy barrier, but was greatly surprised to see how that blow went through it. Fat Gum hit him in the face with everything he had left. All For One brutally hit the ground, spitting out some blood. After delivering that blow, Fat Gum fell to the ground, out of action. Gran Torino walked away with Izuku in his arms. The freckled boy was losing consciousness from the loss of blood. Izuku, I'm sorry. Gran Torino, wake up, boy, don't close your eyes. You can't die here. All For One stood up, wiping the blood from his face. It's time for me to fight seriously. He began to walk slowly but stopped when he saw that the person he had been waiting for fell where Gran Torino was. He just gave a big smile upon seeing him. All Might, seeing Izuku's state, felt great hatred throughout his body. He saw Aizawa's lifeless body, as several heroes had fallen. All Might just looked at All For One as he said, I will never forgive you for this. Anger was evident in the peace symbol's eyes. All For One, until you finally appeared, a symbol of peace. Chapter 39, Class 1 arrives at the battlefield. All Might, this time I will kill you even if it costs me my life. All For One, if you couldn't kill me that time, what makes you think you'll do it now too? Now I'm in my best shape, maybe I'm not 100%, but this is enough to kill you. All Might launched himself at him at high speed. All For One only caught the blow with one hand, counteracting the air pressure from All Might's blow with an air cannon. All Might pressed harder. A huge taste of wind whipped the entire place, sending those who were still standing flying. Gran Torino held Izuku's body as he ran away from danger. Please, boy, don't die. Why aren't your wounds healing? If before I saw that they regenerated at high speed. Meanwhile, Momo, who was holding on to Ida, who was running at high speed, felt a great pain in her chest as if she was losing the most important thing in her life. Momo, Izuku, hold on, we're coming to help you. They saw a huge explosion in the distance, raising a huge curtain of dust. The boys watched this in amazement, quickening their pace as they were almost there to reach the forest where the fight was taking place. All Might flew out at high speed after receiving a powerful blast of air. All For One was standing on his body, black and red rays were shining. He raised his right hand and a kind of black and red whip emerged from his fingernails, which held the peace symbol by the foot, and with incredible force he lifted it upwards to brutally hit the ground. The blonde spat out a little blood, but with a great leap he recovered and attacked his rival again. All for One just stood there without moving. All Might, Detroit smiles. Before he could hit All for One's back, a column with a dragon's mouth grabbed him by the torso, crashing him into the ground. All Might, what is this? I had never seen this quirk before. This means that he's been stealing quirks from other heroes. All for One, what happened? Didn't you say you were going to kill me? All Might spat out a lot of blood as he was being held on the side of his wound. All for One extended his hand, gathering a large amount of pressure. He fired it, hitting All Might squarely, creating a huge explosion of air. As the dust dispersed, everyone could see All Might in his thin form with a lot of blood on his face with his fist forward, as he had managed to counter the blow. There were a pair of helicopters overhead, monitoring the entire fight, alerting the nearest town of the devastation and evacuating if necessary. This was broadcast throughout Japan. All the inhabitants were seeing All Might in his thin form, quite injured. All for One, that's it. All Might shows your true form. All Might had steam coming out of his body. All for One was about to speak when I heard a scream that said, "Shiny." After those hearing words, a huge explosion occurred. All Might looked up at young Bakugo, who had arrived on the battlefield and had a new suit. On both arms he had a sort of black gauntlet, giving the impression of a robotic hand. In the center of his palms he had a circle through which his explosions came out. Connected to both arms there were two tube channels through which all the sweat from him was transported. At the same time he had several small tubes loaded with his sweat as ammunition for his explosions. Well, this was the suit that Melissa and Dr. David had made for her. A large barrier of thick ice separated the entire place. Shoto couldn't help but feel bad seeing his father seriously injured. Endeavor was unconscious from blood loss. The rest of the class had arrived at the battlefield, and upon doing so their eyes couldn't help but open wide when they saw All Might in that state. What hurt Class 1A the most was seeing their teacher Isawa lifeless. Momo, seeing Gran Torino carrying Deku, couldn't help but shed tears at the sight of the person she loved with his chest pierced and on the verge of death. Kaken, seeing his friend like that, broke down inside, feeling great anger. Horsetail catched this and injected into Deku. He threw what David had given him at him. Momo caught it, and without wasting time injected the substance into his neck. Momo, please don't leave me, Izuku. You can't die, love, we still haven't been able to make our life together. Tears fell from the raven's cheek. Ida gave them all a precise order, which was to evacuate all the wounded. Those who had a long-distance attack quirk would stay to fight, the rest had to help by evacuating everyone. Class 1A and 1B were quick to start acting. Kendo would carry Tamaki's body and help Nijire, who could barely stand. Ida, with her speed, took several heroes out of the danger zone. All Might, Shonen Bakugo, you guys get away from the battlefield. He is not just any rival. I will take care of him alone. Kaken, there's no way I'm leaving. I won't leave you alone, All Might. I want you to see me surpass you. All Might just gave a slight smile. On the other hand, Izuku would be in a dark place like nothingness itself. He could see how in front of his eyes were all the bearers of One for All. Izuku, I'm sorry I couldn't defeat him. Nana approached him and hugged him with tears in her eyes, saying, You can't be here, not now. You have to go back with your friends. It's still early for you to join us. Izuku, Nana, you. At that the first bearer approached Izuku, placing his right hand on his shoulder, saying, Izuku Midoriya, you are undoubtedly the best carrier that has ever existed. That is why you must return with them with your friends. The fight is not over yet. Izuku, I can't regenerate anymore. My quirk reached its limit. At that the fifth bearer of One for All would say, That's why you'll have to use my quirk. The subject had a scar on his neck which reached his cheek. His hair was platinum in color, and he was tall. This one had a big smile. He won't let you die. My quirk won't let you die, Izuku Midoriya. At those words, the bearers of One for All began to disappear. Izuku reached out to touch Nana's hand and she said, "You have to be strong, Izuku. Tell Toshinori that I will wait for him here." The fifth bearer said, "When hate takes over your mind and body, remember the reason why you are fighting and the people you want to protect." Hero. Momo, who had Izuku in her arms, could see how the wound on Izuku's chest began to heal at great speed. Momo smiled big when she saw this. Shoto carried his father in his arms carefully as he said, "Are you really going to give up so easily? You wanted to become the #1 hero. You said I should watch you do it, you can't fall here." Endeavor slowly began to open his eyes, seeing his son through his blurred vision. As Shoto, Todoroki Bakugo and All Might watched as the great ice barrier had been destroyed into thousands of pieces, sending a large amount of air blast. All for one, wow, the future heroes came to save your skin, All Might. Steam was coming out of his body, revealing a few burns caused by Bakugo's explosion. All for one, now you will see how I have killed all your students in front of your eyes. He headed at high speed to grab Bakugo's face, but a small marble passed by Bakugo, leaving him face to face with All for One. The marble decompressed, revealing Dabi, whose body was quite injured. He had his blue flames in his palms and a big smile on his face. Chapter 40. Goodbye one for all, goodbye forever shonen. Dabi, you will pay for what you did to us, damn you. All for One was surprised by such an action, as were the rest of the heroes. Dabi, die. After saying that, he used all his power in a powerful attack, consuming All for One's body completely, creating a huge explosion. All Might watched this in astonishment. Kurogiri opened a portal from which twice Toga and Shigaraki emerged, the latter being the one who was seriously injured. "Shigaraki, you know what to do twice." "Twice, right away, but I'm not crazy about facing that monster." He used his quirk, creating more clones of him. Shigaraki looked at All Might, who was injured, and in his thin form he only limited himself to saying, "For now this will be a truth, I will be the one to kill you, symbol of peace." But how pathetic it is to see you in that state. Look at you letting your students carry everything. But now I have to finish off that damn bastard for stealing my quirk and betraying us. I thought I was going to die, but fortunately I survived his attack. Just this once I'll work with the heroes. All Might, upon hearing Shigaraki's words, just opened his eyes wide, and in his thoughts he would say, "You're right, I look pathetic now. Let my students bear all this, let them bear my past mistakes, not me." He clenched his fists, turning into his muscular form as he said, "I am the one who must bear everything. I am the one who must put an end to all this." Dalby was breathing heavily. Twice and Toga helped the boys by carrying those who were injured. Toga had a sadistic laugh as she saw how some heroes were covered in blood. Class A and B didn't trust them, but any help at that moment was enough. The explosion of Dabi caused a lot of dust to circulate around the area. A powerful air bullet pierced Dabi's right shoulder, causing him to cry out in pain and fall to the ground on his knees. He looked up and was greeted by a powerful explosion, sending him flying far away and in critical condition. Shigaraki just opened his eyes wide. From the curtain of dust came All for One with some burns on his body. He had an annoyed expression. "All for One, I thought I had eliminated you, especially Shigaraki. I see that you are so stupid that you did not value the fact that you could have lived a quiet life instead. You decided to come here just for me to kill you. Without a doubt you really are stupid. Shigaraki, don't buck with me, you bucking bastard. You betrayed us. You betrayed my trust, you damned wretch. That's why you have to die. All for One, no, you're the ones who are going to die." He raised his hand to carry out an attack but received a blow from All Might which sent him flying a couple of meters. This one had a muscular arm, then his whole body was thin. Toshinori was vomiting quite a bit of blood from his mouth. He saw thousands of debris floating in the air. He looked back, seeing Uraraka. "Uraraka, now Siro." "Siro, yes." He took a great leap, and with the help of his ribbons he threw the rubble towards All for One. "Uraraka, release." The debris was heading at high speed, falling on top of the target. Zero caught Mineta and threw him very high. The dwarf began to throw the balls from his head while he was bleeding. The debris stuck to these. Mineta, get stuck, damn it. All Might, guys. Uraraka and Zero would say. This is not just your fight, All Might, it is also our fight. A loud explosion shattered all the rubble on the ground, and everyone got into an attack position. All for One stepped out from the middle of the dust explosion. Uraraka, now Momo. Momo understood. The jet had created two powerful cannons which were at its side. Momo, I will protect my Izuku. Plus Ultra. The Raven fired both cannons, hitting All for One's body, who managed to protect himself with two energy barriers. All for One, do you really think that with those little attacks you can stop? He couldn't finish speaking as a certain blonde was at his side with both hands pointing at him. Bakugo gave a big smile saying, Shiny. Both of his palms began to glow brightly, creating a powerful explosion that took All for One by surprise. He received great damage in the middle of his body, as he put his hands in an X shape to protect himself, and flew out at high speed. In midair, Ida greeted him with a powerful kick, sending all the force of her thruster into that kick. After that strong impact, All for One was deeply embedded in the ground. Ida, now Todoroki. Without wasting time, Todoroki froze All for One with the eye side in the hope of holding him back a bit, since there were still wounded people on the battlefield. All Might was impressed by the boys' teamwork. Ida, now let's take advantage to finish by taking out the rest of the wounded. This won't stop him for long. The rest of the boys agreed. As they were about to move, the ice that Todoroki had created had been shattered into thousands of particles floating in the air. Everyone comes to All for One with his right arm bigger and more muscular. From his body came out several whips of muscle fiber which began to stick to his body, covering his wounds. He had some blood falling from his mouth. All for One, now I will defeat them with the best combination of quirks that I have stolen. Just like in the anime, he deformed his right arm with a bunch of quirks. All Might, I will not allow you to touch any of my students, just like Isawa, I will protect them with my life. The blonde put on a serious look, looking at his muscular form, although his body could not take it anymore. This one at an incredible speed that no one could see, he launched himself to give a blow to All for One, who collided his fists against his rival, creating a powerful gust of wind which sent several people who were there flying. Neither one gave in to their rival. All for One, I can already see the weak embers that are going to go out on their own. They resist, They desperately resist in order not to fade away until they have fulfilled their duty. How unpleasant. He began to apply more force, forcing All Might to retreat, and a lot of blood was coming out of his arm. In All Might's mind, his teacher's words echoed. When you are at your limit, remember. All Might, he can't. I won't leave you. All for One, how unpleasant to see you resist like this. All Might dodged All for One's fist, already in his slim form. All Might gave him a powerful blow with his right hand in the face, drawing some blood. Gran Torino, who saw all this, said, with that last blow, he passed the power from his right arm to his left. I used the right as bait. But, All for One, how ridiculous, those tricks aren't yours, he said as he prepared his left arm with a powerful air cannon. He saw how his rival's arm returned to its thin form while he was throwing out smoke. All Might, because I put it on my back, he said as he raised his right arm, which was already purple and quite bloody. While in her mind the words of her teacher echoed. Power has been entrusted to the next generation by many people, praying that it will work out for the good of all, so that your hopes may be won. Now it's your turn. Do your best, Tashinori. All Might's right arm had become muscular. All Might dodged his rival's air cannon as he got closer to All for One's face while saying in his thoughts, Goodbye, All for One. Tashinori's fist hit the latter's face. United State of Smash. All for One received that blow head-on, being brutally impacted against the ground, creating an immense crater. The pressure of that blow created a huge whirlwind that sent everyone flying. All Might, goodbye one for all. remove a bit of dust that had been raised by that blow. Everyone looked expectantly at the curtain of dust. Little by little the dust was dispersing, revealing parts of All Might who was standing. Everyone was happy to see All Might, but that smile slowly faded when they saw All For One on the ground and All Might being pierced by a dragon-shaped column that came out of All For One's back, piercing the chest of the symbol of peace. Mina, with tears in her eyes, cried, "All Might!" Everyone had their eyes watering at what they were seeing. Toshinori spat out a lot of blood and fell to his knees. All For One, quite seriously injured, slowly got up as the spine returned to his back. He took All Might's neck with his hands and lifted him into the air, while looking at his face with contempt. "All For One, I must say that you left me very badly wounded, bastard, but this will be the end of you." Bakugo launched himself to help All Might but was stopped by an air bullet that pierced his leg, causing him to fall abruptly to the ground. Gran Torino, who had Deku at his side, saw the rays of One For All come out of the freckled man's body. Izuku opened his eyes suddenly, breathing heavily, and stood up only to see a painful scene in front of his eyes. Izuku, with tears in his eyes, said, "All Might. All For One, so you're still alive, brat? You woke up at a good time to witness All Might's final moments." All Might turned his gaze to see his successor one last time to give a slight smile and say, "I'm sorry, Shonen, I can no longer accompany you on your journey as a hero. But I am very proud of you. I will never regret having chosen you as my successor. Since I met you, you have been like a son to me. Please keep saving people with a big smile. I know you won't be. You are already the greatest hero I have ever met. Goodbye forever, Shonen," he said as he began to disintegrate due to All For One's deterioration quirk. The last thing they saw of the peace symbol was a smile. He left with that smile he showed when saving people. All For One, what pathetic words. Momo and the others only had tears falling from their eyes. Uraraka, All Might. Sir Nightai, who had recovered from the consequences, had seen the last minutes of the symbol of peace and could only say, "Forgive me for everything, my friend, rest in peace." Gran Torino had several tears falling down his cheeks. Well, this one was largely his teacher. He had become quite fond of him, and with a broken voice he said, "Goodbye, Toshinori." Shigaraki, who was there, could only say, "So I died, huh? There is no longer a symbol of peace." This one just gave a slight sigh. "All For One, I finally defeated the only scum that could stop me and once did." He was quite badly wounded, but he still had the strength to fight and stay on his feet. "All For One, I'll finish them all at once." After saying that, the entire area began to disintegrate in a matter of seconds. Everyone opened their eyes and started running away from danger. Shigaraki, Kurogyri, do it. Create portals, help the heroes. Kurogyri, I see you decided to do it in the end. Shigaraki, thank you for being by my side and saving me from that explosion. Kurogyri opened several portals and told the heroes to go through them to take them to a safe place. With no other option, some passed. Those who could fly moved away from the ground. Izuku reacted quickly, and with his black whips he caught those within his reach and rose into the air. Kaken rose from the ground with his explosions. He saw how Gyro and Kaminari were running. He could see how Gyro had an injured leg. Because of some of the debris that flew out and hit her leg abruptly, Kaminari helped her run as the disintegration was about to reach them. Bakugo, without thinking, headed towards them with his explosions. Kaminari watched as the blonde approached them. He carried Gyro in his arms as best he could and said, "Catch it, Bakugo." After saying that, he threw his partner. This took Bakugo by surprise, who caught her in the air. "Kaminari, take care of my friend for me. I'm definitely glad I met you guys." Bakugo knew he did it since he couldn't carry both of them. Gyro, Kaminari. Kaminari just gave a smile as he was consumed by All For One's deterioration. Todoroki escaped by creating a path of ice, carrying Endeavor on his back. Endeavor saw how Dabi was up ahead, struggling to stand up because from the explosion he had received he barely had any strength, not to mention that he had lost a lot of blood. Endeavor told Shoto that he would help him, but he refused. Endeavor released Shoto and walked over to where Dabi was. Dabi, seeing him, told him that he didn't need his help. Endeavor, I didn't ask you if you needed it or not. Shoto, what are you doing, Dad? Endeavor, forgive me, Dabi, I was a bad father. I recognize my mistakes. I know I can't turn back time and fix the damage I did to you. I don't deserve your forgiveness nor the forgiveness of my family. I behaved very badly with everyone. But I don't want to see you die here, they are. Endeavor took Dabi with his right arm. The deterioration was seconds away from reaching them. Endeavor, catch your brother Shoto. After saying that, he launched Dabi with his last strength. Shoto caught him. Dabi, seeing Endeavor, remembered his childhood with him, while he saw his father standing. Shoto, Dad. Endeavor, get out of here quickly. Tell your mother that I'm very sorry for everything I did to her, and tell Fuyumi that I forgive me for not giving her the affection she so much wanted. To Natsuo for not supporting him in his dreams. I would like to have a second chance to fix everything. It's too late for this, but I love you, children. The number 2 hero was slowly consumed as tears fell from his eyes. His flames ignited for one last time. Shoto, with his voice broken, said, I had already forgive you, Dad. He quickly walked away with Dabi on his back. On the other hand, Mineta was running with all his strength while carrying Tsuyu on his shoulders, who was unconscious. He saw Izuku in the air, so he shouted, Midoriya, over here. Izuku, upon hearing that voice, quickly looked for Mineta with his gaze. He saw how the dwarf came running with his friend. Izuku could only draw one last black whip from his body. Disintegration was nipping at the dwarf's heels. Without wasting time, he threw his black whip. Mineta knew that he wouldn't have time for the whip to catch them both, so on impulse he threw Tsuyu towards the whip, causing it to catch her. Izuku, Mineta. Mineta just raised his thumb up as he said, Calm down, Midoriya. After all, this is what a hero does, right? I will leave as one. Mineta was consumed by disintegration. Izuku, Mineta. All for one enjoyed watching the desperation of the heroes as they ran for their lives. Behind this, a portal was formed from which Shigaraki would emerge. All for one turned around, grabbing him by the neck as he said, What were you trying to do, Shigaraki? Did you think that by allying yourself with the heroes you were going to beat me? Now you're going to die. Shigaraki, I may not be able to defeat you, but... He pulled out a gun he had hidden and shot him in the neck, with a very strange bullet. All for one, what is this? Shigaraki, it's a bullet capable of erasing a quirk. I stole it from Overhaul. All for one opened his right eye at those words as he felt a sharp pain throughout his body. This disintegrated Shigaraki, who before disappearing said, Now you will never be able to steal one for all. This is your unfortunate end. Chapter 41. Sacrifice for Love, Eli's Feelings. Shigaraki had become part of nothingness. All for one fell to his knees on the ground, feeling in his body how the effect of that bullet took effect at high speed, feeling great pain inside him. After this happened, the disintegration suddenly stopped. Izuku, seeing that, he ordered the rest to evacuate everyone, that the danger was still present. The freckled boy went down to the ground, placing those he had grabbed with his whip on the ground. Kurojairi continued creating portals to help the heroes. Such a portal took them to the center of the city away from danger. He did this because it was the last favor that Shigaraki had asked him before dying. Kaken carefully lowered Jairu. He saw how she was. She was crying after losing her friend. The blonde just hugged her, calming her down a little while he said, He left like a hero, who, even knowing what was going to happen, kept smiling despite everything. The blonde separated from her while saying, Go with the others, I'll return to the battlefield. He began to walk with a lot of anger because of the death of his friend and the loss of the symbol of peace. Jairu said with a broken voice, Promise me you will become a Muslim again. Promise me, tell me that you will return safe and sound. Why? Kaken stopped dead in his tracks without saying a single word. Jairu understood his silence. Kaken, go with the others, this place is still dangerous. Even with his leg pierced, he was still standing, ready to return to the battlefield. Jiraiya held his right hand and with tears in his eyes said, "Please, tell me that you will come back. I couldn't bear to lose you." Kaken, standing behind her, said, "I thought you didn't like me." "Jiraiya, what did you tell me that time was true?" Kaken turned around to look at her in the eyes. "If it was true." Jiraiya intertwined her fingers with his and approached his face, giving him a kiss on his lips. Bakugo just opened his eyes wide. Jiraiya separated, saying, "I won't forgive you if you don't come back, you understand?" Kaken just gave a slight smile and turned around, starting to fly with his explosions. Izuku looked towards where All for One was. The freckled man had a serious look and said, "I will never forgive you for this." The rays of One for All began to emerge from his body abruptly. Kaken fell next to Izuku, both with a single goal. Momo, who was safe next to Shiro and Uraraka, saw how All for One was quite injured. "Momo, this is the last chance we have to defeat him, we must fight too." All for One stood up, seeing that he still had heroes to kill, frustrated knowing that he could no longer obtain One for All. He said, "Damn Shigaraki. I'll kill you all." This one hit the ground, creating several iron spikes which headed at high speed towards Izuku and Kaken. Izuku at high speed propelled himself around, connecting powerful kicks powered by One for All, destroying the thorns. Bakugo used powerful explosions to destroy the thorns on a large scale. All for One covered himself by putting an energy barrier in front of him, receiving Izuku's kick head-on, which put more pressure on it. Bakugo positioned himself to one side of him to give him a powerful explosion. All for One put his hand in the direction where Kaken was, creating a circle of energy, hitting Bakugo hard with powerful air pressure. He flew out at high speed, spitting out a lot of blood. Izuku Kaken. Izuku received the same attack as his friend, being sent flying. All for One was about to attack Izuku but felt his legs rooted to the ground. He looked down, seeing several vines coming out of the ground that held his feet firmly. "Ibara, now guys." Ida ran past at high speed, doing a spin in the air, launching Tetsu at high speed. This one was with his quirk activated. Tetsu gave a big blow to All for One's face, making him spit out a lot of blood. Tetsu, now Uraraka and Kirishima. Uraraka, release. All for One looked up, seeing Kirishima in his red riot form above him. "Kirishima, this is for my friends." He gave him a powerful hammer blow, causing All for One to brutally hit the ground, spitting out a lot of blood. As soon as he moved away, All for One began to lose control, causing 4 columns of dragons to emerge from his back, which took Tetsu and Kirishima, sinking them into the ground. He raised his gaze, placing his left palm on the ground, sending a taste of air beneath it. The taste came out from beneath Ibara, hitting her squarely. She suffered quite a bit of damage. "All for One, I won't play with you anymore." He wrapped his body with muscle fibers, increasing his size. He saw how 2 students from Class B were in the air. Toguro Kamakiri used his sharp blade quirk to free Kirishima, while Jirota Shishida in his beast mode freed Tetsu. "All for One, more garbage comes to interfere." He raised his hands but made a great slash, dodging several horns that attacked him at high speed. This was the work of Pony of Class B with his cannon horn quirk. All for One raised his palm on the tip of his 5 fingers. Small circles formed from these. 5 air bullets came out at high speed towards Pony. She had no time to dodge when in front of her stood her classmate Kozai Tsubiraba, using his solid air quirk, creating a barrier protecting her from the attack. The barrier in the 4th impact had been destroyed, causing the 5th bullet to go through her left arm. Kozai gave a cry of pain. All for One landed on the ground and propelled himself at high speed towards the boys. He prepared his right fist, which was still deformed by the mutations of his quirks. He was centimeters away from hitting them. A black portal appeared in front of him. He couldn't avoid it, and went through it, appearing at a great height in the air. Izuku was waiting for him with his fist. All for One just opened his eye in astonishment. Izuku, One for All 150%. SMASHHHHHH. The freckled man hit him with a powerful blow to the face. All for One managed to cover himself with his left hand but still received a large part of the blow. He would fall at high speed. Kaken caught him by surprise in the air. The blonde had a big smile on her face. This is for Kaminari. Shiny. The blonde had given him the most powerful explosion he could. All for one fell brutally to the ground, creating a large crater, raising a large amount of dust. Izuku and Kaken were breathing heavily as blood dripped from their faces. The curtain of dust slowly began to dissipate, revealing All for One on the ground. He was barely trying to stand up with his torso covered in blood, as Bakugo's explosion had caused him some serious damage. If it weren't for the fact that his body was covered by muscle fibers, he would have suffered even worse damage. He stood up as best he could. All for one, how unpleasant. Filthy and disgusting heroes refuse to die. Izuku, you're already finished. All for one. You will no longer be able to steal one for all. Shigaraki took away the only thing that gave you the advantage. The quirks you have now will soon reach their limit, and you know it better than anyone. All for one, shut up your trash container. I can't be defeated by trash like you. I killed the ancient carriers. You will not be the exception. Izuku saw how the quirks he had began to get out of control. Now there were no longer just 4 columns coming out of his back but 6. On his chest a kind of steel scales appeared covering his wounds. From the nails of his left hand a kind of black whips with red lines began to come out. Both of its legs became like those of a beast. Instead of having fingers it had 3 enormous claws like an animal. All for one, I'll kill them before I reach my limit. Kaken, that's not human anymore, that's a monster. All for one saw a certain brunette who was at a distance almost close to Izuku. He gave a macabre smile as he said, I'll make you lose the only thing you have left in this world, Izuku Midoriya. A kind of black mud began to come out of All for One's mouth and covered his entire body, making him disappear. Izuku and Kaken's eyes widened at this. Izuku instinctively looked back, seeing that Momo was in sight. The freckled boy saw how that black mud appeared behind Momo, showing All for One behind her. Izuku, Momo. Momo turned around, seeing All for One. Uraraka and Siro were held by the column of dragons without being able to do anything. Izuku launched himself at high speed towards the raven, hoping to arrive in time. Momo only took a step back but only spat out a lot of blood. Everyone saw how All for One's right hand, more exactly his fingers, had transformed into a single long steel thorn piercing the brunette's chest, more exactly the area of her heart. All for One raised his arm with the jet still pierced through it, its blood falling down the iron thorn staining the ground. Izuku stopped dead when he saw what was happening. He couldn't believe it. Uraraka and Siro shouted, Momo. All for One just had a look of satisfaction. He felt something on his neck, as the brunette's arm was on his neck with an artifact embedded in it. Momo just gave a smile, saying, Why, you got the wrong person, damn it. Everyone saw how she had a bracelet on her left arm. Momo's image began to disappear, revealing another person. Izuku opened his eyes wide when he saw who it was. Eli, I changed Izuku's destiny. This one spat up quite a bit of blood. All for One, what did you inject? Speak. Eli, a liquid that will kill the cells that allow you to use your stolen quirks. The weapon given to me by Director Nizu, created by Dr. David. In less than 5 minutes you will no longer be able to use any quirk, accept your fate. Death is calling you. We moved 1 square ahead of you. All for One sent Eli flying through the air, while he began to spit out a lot of blood as he fell to his knees. Izuku caught Eli in the air. Izuku, with tears in his eyes, said, Eli, wake up, please. Why didn't you leave like I told you? Eli, I saw the thousands of destinations that you saw. I didn't want you to die. So I changed the destiny. She had tears falling from her eyes. Izuku, resist Eli, please. Eli brought her right hand to Izuku's cheek while with a tender look she said, Have you ever had a crush on someone? And you have felt like the most useful person in this world? Because you know you'll never have her in your arms. Or because you know you're never really going to have him the way you really want him. That's when you realize that it's probably an impossible love. And even if I I chose to love you. Even knowing that I will never be yours and that you will never be mine, but still I can tell you that I love Izuku. Tears fell from her cheeks. Izuku's tears fell on Eli's right hand. Izuku, Eli. Eli, see, come closer, please. Izuku approached Eli, who, with his last bit of strength, approached him and gave him a kiss on his lips. Izuku just opened his eyes wide as he felt Eli's hands slowly fall on his cheek. Izuku pulled away, seeing how Eli's eyes were already closed. Izuku, Eli, please wake up. Eli. The freckled man just let out a heart-rending scream. Chapter 42. Goodbye All Might, goodbye forever friends. Momo was unconscious on top of Ryukyu, who was in her dragon form. Izuku had tears falling from his eyes as he held Eli's lifeless body. He went on to remember everything he had experienced with her in the other reality. The freckled man certainly loved her very much. The brown-haired girl really knew how to win a place in the freckled boy's heart. Izuku said in a low voice. Thank you for everything you did for me, Eli. Kaken just stood there with his gaze downcast and said, Enough. Not anymore. I don't want to see any of my friends die anymore. Those who witnessed the scene could only remain silent because how many lives had to be extinguished to end evil. All for One was kneeling while spitting out quite a bit of blood. This one would say, that brat should have made her suffer a little more. Izuku heard those words and felt a great hatred run through his entire body. Memories of his deceased friends, his teacher, and the girl who made a sacrifice of love to change his destiny passed through his mind. The words of the fifth bearer became present. That's why you'll have to use my quirk. My cozy, I will not allow you to die, boy. Izuku, I will never forgive you All for One. A kind of dark aura began to emerge from the freckled man's body. The rays of One for All were no longer green, they were now a deep red color. Izuku began to release a large amount of energy from his body. Such energy unleashed powerful tastes of wind all over the place. The pressure of these was so strong that it sent everyone present flying, even All for One flew a few meters. Various objects began to levitate around Izuku. Black whips began to shoot out wildly from Izuku's body. His hair turned white and his eyes a bright blue color. All for One, this power. Kaken would see how his friend was losing control. Gran Torino saw all this and said, The One for All is corrupting. Lines appeared all over Izuku's torso, running through his body. These were the same ones that appear when he uses the full cowl. Izuku raised his gaze, showing one full of hatred. All for One, I must finish him off before I can no longer use any of my quirks. Izuku in a flash stood face to face with All for One and said, One for All, Domain of Darkness. Fifth Wearer's Quirk. Dark Dimension. After saying that, a great darkness emerged from beneath Izuku which trapped Izuku and All for One in a large sphere of darkness. All the others were speechless when they saw what happened. Inside the sphere everything was dark, and they could barely see. All for One, what is this? Izuku, now you will atone for your sins, All for One. All for One, my sins? Now he kills you. He tried to move but saw how his feet were tied to the darkness of the ground. Hands began to come out grabbing each of his legs. All for One, but what? He looked up seeing how behind Izuku were all the bearers of One for All. All for One felt fear for the first time. The hands holding All for One's feet were those of the innocent people he had killed in the past. He was about to speak but felt a hand covering his mouth. I froze when I heard that person's voice. Shigaraki, your seconds are numbered, master. Shigaraki was behind him showing a big smile. Izuku, in this dimension the souls that you killed without any mercy return to take you with them, to torment you in life. All for One began to scream as both Shigaraki's hand and the hands holding his feet began to burn his body. All for One managed to free himself from those hands. He had blood falling from his mouth because Shigaraki had put his hand in that place, burning him seriously. This one with his dragon columns attacked Izuku, who only began to walk slowly towards it. The columns, when making contact with Izuku's body, instantly vanished. All for One, WY. Izuku, can't you understand it yet? Eli told you before, you're already starting to lose your quirks. In a few seconds you will die. All for one, I will kill you before I reach my limit. He couldn't finish speaking as he had Izuku on one side of him. The freckled boy's hand was centimeters away from touching All for One's face. Who didn't see the moment in which Izuku had moved, the freckled boy grabbed him by the face and brutally slammed him against the ground. All for One spat out a lot of blood from the brutal impact. The black whips grabbed him by the foot and sent him upwards. Izuku passed at high speed, placing himself on top of it while raising his right foot while saying, "This is for Kaminari and Mineta." Manchester Smash. After saying that, he landed a powerful kick in the stomach, sending him crashing to the ground again. Izuku fell to his side. All for One barely got up. Izuku did a spin in the air saying, "This is for Aisawa-sensei." The freckled man connected a powerful kick to the face, sending All for One flying several meters, who collided with the barrier of darkness and fell to his knees breathing heavily. Izuku stood preparing to deliver the final blow. All for One stood up as best he could, sending all his strength to his right arm as he said, "I won't lose to a brat like you." He was taken by the back. All for One looked sideways to see who it was. A drop of cold sweat fell down his cheek when he saw his brother behind him. In other words, to the first bearer of One for All, he would say, "Accept your end, brother." He placed his hand on All for One's chest, more exactly in the area of his heart. His fingers began to sink into his body. All for One screamed in pain. He managed to break free from the grip by clenching his fist tightly. Izuku, One for All 200%. All for One launched himself with his right fist ready to hit Izuku. The freckled man also launched himself at high speed. Both of them hit their fists, creating a great air pressure. All for One pushed his body to the limit, pushing Izuku back. The freckled man's arm began to creak as if it were about to break. The black whips wrapped around his arm to cushion some of the power of One for All's impact. Izuku, and this is it. For all might. One for All 1,000,000%. Delaware Detroit Smash. All for One clearly saw the faces of all the One for All wielders behind Izuku, who had their fists raised just like the freckled man. He could clearly see All in his muscular form behind Izuku. With that blow, Izuku broke All for One's arm, impacting him in the face, brutally embedding him against the ground, creating an immense crater, causing a giant whirlwind due to the air pressure that threatened to vanish all the darkness. From outside, the whole ground had suddenly split open. This mattered to the boys. Kakin was worried about his friend. Returning inside the sphere of darkness, All for One was lying on the ground. His body had returned to normal. His right arm was full of blood. He was barely breathing. His vision was blurry. His body was no longer responding and he was on the verge of death. Izuku, All for One is over. You can't do anything to me anymore. You're a normal person now. All for One in a small whisper said, Please, please. Don't kill me." Izuku raised his right hand. Above it there was an accumulation of darkness which began to take shape until a large dagger was visible, which was levitating above All for One. "Izuku, don't kill me? You killed innocent people without having any compassion for them. You killed my friends and my teacher. And above all, you killed Eli. Did you have mercy when you pierced his chest? Did you have it?" she asked as tears fell from her cheeks. "All for One, please." Izuku began to slowly lower his hand. The dagger lowered with Izuku's hand until it was positioned over the area of All for One's heart. "Izuku, this is by Eli." After saying that, he lowered his hand completely, causing the dagger to abruptly embed itself in his chest. All for One just released blood from his mouth as a small but faint sound of pain came from him. Until everything fell silent, All for One had finally died. "Izuku, finally it's all over." Izuku's hair had returned to normal. The black whips stopped coming out of his body. He turned around, seeing how behind him were the bearers of One for All. The second and third bearers were covered in darkness, their faces not visible. "Izuku, so?" All Might being in his thin form, seeing his disciple gave a slight smile placing. I knew you would make it, shonen. You won the battle. Izuku, but at what cost? It's my fault you. All Might, no, of course not. Sooner or later this was going to happen, this is not your fault, shonen. The first bearer would say. Izuku Midoriya, we certainly do not regret having chosen you as our bearer. You delayed All for One from the evil that has reigned these past few years. Well done, boy. Izuku, you guys don't. The first bearer just gave a slight warm smile saying. Now we can go and rest in peace. We no longer have any reason to remain within One for All. The reason we stayed was to help the new user of One for All, in other words to guide him on the right path to end the evil of this world all for one. And you achieved that goal, there is no reason for us to stay. You already know how to use our quirks, so there's nothing else we can teach you, boy. The only ones who will stay are the second and third bearer, they have not yet taught you how to handle their quirks. Izuku looked at Nana saying. Why you're leaving too, Nana? Nana just nodded her head. Izuku, I see. The sixth, fifth, and fourth wielder approached Izuku and gave him a smile while saying. Make good use of our hero Deku quirks. We wish you the best, boy. Izuku, thanks, without you I could never have one. All Might, before you go, can I ask you for one last hug? He said with a broken voice. All Might just smiled slightly and hugged him. The hug was a fatherly one, as if they were father and son. Izuku, with his eyes filled with tears, hugged his teacher with all his strength, remembering how it all began. Izuku whispered. Tell Mom I miss her and love her so much. Please forgive me for not being with her during her last 10 months. All Might, I'll tell her, shonen, rest assured I'll tell her, both she and I are proud of you. They both separated from the hug, then someone grabbed Izuku by the shoulder. The freckled boy turned around, seeing his teacher Aizawa, Kaminari, Mineta, Hawks, Kamui, Endeavor, and Tamaki. Izuku, Aizawa-sensei. Aizawa, I'm so proud of you, Izuku. From the first test I gave you, I knew you had unique potential. Forgive me to the others for not being able to say goodbye to them. Tell them that I am proud of each one of them. Izuku, Aizawa-sensei. Is he crying? Aizawa, it's not just that I got some garbage in my eye, that's all. Kamakiri, Midoriya tells Bakugo and Jiraiya to be happy, also apologizes to the others for not saying goodbye. Izuku, Kaminari, you knew about Bakugo's feelings, right? Kaminari, yes, I knew it. Even though they fight all the time, they are there for each other. While I wanted to protect both of their happiness, after all they are my friends. Mineta, Midoriya, if they make a statue in my honor, do you think that many girls will go see it? He said with a perverted look. Izuku just laughed a little while trying not to shed tears and just said, I'm sure you do, Hero Mineta. The dwarf just gave a big smile at his friend's response. Hawks, well done kid, right? Well done, symbol of peace. Endeavor, boy, please tell Shoto that I will always be proud of him. No matter where he goes, I will always take care of him. Izuku, Endeavor, I'm sure Shoto will be proud of you. Endeavor just gave a slight smile. Tamaki approached Izuku, trembling a little as he said, How do you manage to talk with so many people looking at you? Me. My stomach hurts already. Izuku just laughed a little as Tamaki was still the same. Tamaki, could you excuse me to Mirio and Nijire? The three of us had made a promise that we would graduate together, but I will not be able to keep that promise. Izuku, Tamaki-senpai. I'll tell him, don't worry. I watched as they began to fade away. Izuku, bye guys. He again turned his gaze to see one last time All Might, who was with the other carriers. Izuku, bye dad. Tashinori shed a few tears upon hearing those words as he gave her a smile before disappearing with the other bearers. Nana was the only one left in the place, and she approached Izuku. Izuku then. This is goodbye, right? Nana, I'm afraid that if Izuku knows. I had a great time with you during this time we were together. I certainly enjoyed laughing about everything we experienced together. Izuku, me too, Nana. Nana, since this is goodbye, I guess that this wouldn't be bad. She approached Izuku. Izuku blushed as much as he could when he saw what Nana did. Chapter 43, Farewell and Regrets. Nana had joined her lips with Izuku's in a tender kiss. Nana was blushing a lot. When they separated, they were both blushing. Izuku and Nana. Nana, I told you before. If you needed my lips, I would give them to you, Baka. And since this is goodbye, it is my way of saying goodbye because we will never see each other again, Izuku. You know, I would like to, and if I could reincarnate in another life, I would like to do it where I can be with you and be your same age, so maybe I could have a relationship with you, he said as he slowly faded away. Izuku, bye Nana. Thanks for everything. Now the freckled man was left alone in that place. The lifeless body of All for One was on the ground. Bakugo from outside was about to approach the large amount of darkness in which he saw how it began to become smaller and smaller until it took the form of Izuku and disappeared completely. Everyone could see Izuku, who was standing with his fists raised. All for One was standing next to him. Bakugo, seeing his friend with his back turned and his fists raised, couldn't help but see All Might behind him for a moment. Everyone let out a cry of excitement as the battle had come to an end. All for One had finally been defeated. The helicopters in the sky had captured everything and focused on Izuku standing with his fist raised. Everyone watching this gave a shout of joy, although they were lamenting the losses that had occurred during that fight. The reporter giving the news inside one of the helicopters would say, "The battle has come to an end, the heroes have won, that boy who is standing so young along with the help of his companions defeated that villain who ended the life of All Might and other heroes and young aspirants. Izuku, this is over." The freckled boy fell unconscious to the ground. All his friends went to help him. Several paramedics arrived on the scene to treat the injured, many of whom were heroes, and some students, as well as some police officers, arrived to help in any way they could. Gran Torino, finally it's all over. Without a doubt this was the biggest and most dangerous battle that the heroes had to face. He looked up at the sky and said, "You can rest in peace now, Toshinori, your successor finally defeated him." Several students were treated and taken to the hospital to treat their injuries. Izuku was taken with them. His body showed several not very serious injuries. After about 6 hours, Izuku would wake up in the hospital with his body in great pain because now the excess he had done with his quirks was taking his toll on him. He saw that a certain black woman was sleeping next to him on the stretcher, resting her head on the side of his legs. The black woman had some parts of her body bandaged. Izuku, seeing her, just smiled a little, saying, "I know you're awake, Momo, you can open your eyes now." The brunette slowly opened her eyes, revealing that they were about to shed some tears. "Izuku, Momo. Momo, fool. I told you didn't have to carry it all by yourself. I told you we could carry together. But still you decided to lock us in that room. What was I going to do if I lost you forever? Why, oh, I wouldn't know how to live without you. You are my life, Izuku. If I lost you, I would." Izuku hugged her tenderly as he said, "I'm sorry. I had no other choice. I know it was wrong, but I couldn't have stood to see you die again. No, I couldn't have stood to see you die again." Momo returned her hug by saying, "The important thing is that you are alive and that you are by my side, love." She separated and gave him a tender kiss on the lips, which Izuku reciprocated. At that, a voice coming from behind them said, "Wow, I see you already woke him up, Momo." The two young men separated and turned to see who it was. Meeting Bakugo and Jairu, the blonde had his right leg bandaged and was leaning on Jairu's so he could walk properly. "Izuku, Kaken, I'm glad to see you both are okay." Bakugo just gave a slight smile and looked at Jairu, saying, "Could you let me go? I told you I can walk on my own." "Jairu, I told you no. Stubborn Muslim." The doctor said not to strain too much, or the wound might open again. "Bakugo, who are you calling a Muslim?" Rock bored. "Jairu, do you see another Muslim around here?" Izuku and Momo laughed a little at the scene between the two. but their smiles were somewhat dull because they knew they had lost two great friends. Izuku, I'm sorry Jiraiya because of me Kaminari. Jiraiya, this is not your fault Midoriya. We were the ones who decided to go help you, we knew what could happen, that fool saved me and sacrificed himself. Izuku, he and Mineta were true heroes. I'm sorry Momo, I couldn't protect Eli, I wasn't very strong. Momo, you know she was the one who knocked me out but I never thought she would sacrifice herself to change destiny, she said as some tears fell from her cheeks. Izuku just hugged her, calming her down a bit. Momo, you know. His body disappeared from the field. Izuku, what do you say? Bakugo, just as you heard, his body disappeared, I say that just like All Might, it disintegrated. Izuku, I see. How are the others? Bakugo, well, they're fine, they didn't have serious injuries. Except for the heroine Mirko, who has been completely silent since she woke up. And well, Nijire's senpai hasn't said a single word, well you already know that. Izuku, is she here in the hospital? Bakugo, if he's in room 58. Izuku separated from Momo and stood up saying, I have to go see her, I need to tell her something. The boys would accompany Izuku. As they passed through one of the hallways, they saw the room where Kirishima was, who was all bandaged up. Mina was by his side taking care of him. They stood by the window of Kirishima's room, seeing his friends. He raised his thumb high indicating that he was okay. Izuku just smiled when he saw his friend and continued until he reached the light blue-haired girl's room. Izuku, I'll enter only if. Please wait for me here. The boys agreed. When the freckled boy entered he saw Mirio standing looking out the window and the light blue-haired girl sitting on the stretcher with her head down without saying a single word. Izuku, Nijire-senpai. The light blue-haired girl with her red eyes from crying so much looked at Izuku. The blonde also had a sad look but tried to hide it with a smile. Izuku, I'm sorry this was my fault. Why? Nijire, I couldn't prevent their deaths Izuku. Izuku approached her and hugged her. Nijire burst into tears, hugging Izuku tightly and saying, because of me, Aizawa-sensei and Tamaki died all to protect me. I am pathetic, I was weak so much that others needed to help me, I should have been the one to leave, not them. Izuku, you are not weak senpai. You are the strongest girl I know. Tamaki told me to excuse him for breaking his promise and leaving without saying goodbye. He undoubtedly loved you very much, you were his best friend, so he did not hesitate for a second to give his life to you. Before going to rest I ask you to tell me. Thank you for being your friends. Mirio couldn't help but cry for his friend upon hearing those words. Nijire cried a little longer in Izuku's arms until she calmed down a bit. Izuku, the people who gave their lives in this last fight are the true heroes and I don't think they want to see us cry. I think they gave their lives so that we can keep smiling and keep saving people. I know Aizawa-sensei would want the same, he was proud of all his children, he was undoubtedly the best teacher I have ever met. He was determined to give his life to his students, even if he didn't show it, he always took care of us all. Nijire wiped away her tears and said, You're right. I will graduate as a professional hero so that Tamaki and Aizawa-sensei will be proud of me. The light blue-haired girl showed a slight smile as Mirio did. After that the freckled man left the room and after a few hours some of the boys were discharged. They returned to their homes. Bakugo told Izuku that he could sleep at his house, that after all he was part of the family. Izuku and Momo agreed to stay overnight at the blonde's house. Well, Momo had already cut all ties with her family, now the only family she had were her friends and her boyfriend Izuku. Nizu was in the direction of the academy, he had a photo where All Might and Aizawa were along with the boys from Class 1A, the rodent gave a slight smile while saying, You always loved your children so much that you gave your life for them. Without a doubt you were and will be the best teacher and hero Aizawa. Toshinori, you couldn't have picked a better successor, you did a good job trusting young Izuku. The new symbol of peace, without a doubt the academy and all of Japan are mourning his loss. Melissa was crying in the academy laboratory. Her father was hugging her. because he knew that sooner or later All Might would go to rest in peace. But his loss still hurts him. The next day we can see several heroes and several people from Japan in the cemetery. Well, the time had come to bury the fallen heroes. All the boys from the academy were present at the place. The day of the burial it was raining due to the loss of the heroes. Although Kaminari, Mineta, Endeavor and All Might had been disintegrated, they still gave them a proper burial. Izuku was standing in front of the grave of his teacher, and in other words of the person he considered his father. The grave of the symbol of peace was littered with beautiful wreaths of roses, and photos of him in his prime. Those present were holding their umbrellas. Several people were crying. The boys from Class 1A were crying for the loss of their teachers and friends. Kaminari's parents and Mineta's parents were devastated by the death of their children. The boys and heroes gave him their most sincere condolences for his loss. After an hour some left saying goodbye to the fallen. Kaken was standing watching his green-haired friend under the rain. He was grateful that it was raining that day so no one would see the tears fall from his friend's cheeks. Because he had already suffered the loss of his mother, and now he carried the pain of the loss of his hero whom he always admired more than the loss of his friends. Mirko was standing on crutches as she had not fully recovered. The rabbit had some tears on her cheeks. His eyes fell on his friend Hawk's grave. Mirko, you were always bothering me both at work and at the academy, but even so, you were always by my side when I needed you. Why did you have to leave Hawks? The rabbit's voice was choppy. Midnight hugged her, calming her down a bit. Mirio and Nijire were placing a wreath of roses on Tamaki's grave along with a frame with a photo where the three of them were together. Nijire, gee goodbye Tama. The light blue-haired girl's voice became more and more choppy as several tears fell from her eyes. Mirio hugged his friend because they were both very hurt by her loss. Every boy in Class 1A placed roses on Mineta and Kaminari's grave. On Aizawa's grave there were photos of him with his students, and several flowers and roses. Present Mike was standing saying goodbye to his friend. The boys said a tearful goodbye to their teacher Aizawa. Shoto was standing with his head down. In his right hand he had a crown of roses. He was in front of his father's grave. Fuyumi and Natsuo, accompanied by their mother, were behind him. Fuyumi had cried a little because Shoto had told her the last words her father had said to her. Fuyumi, Shoto, if you don't want to do it, I will. Shoto, no. I will do it. He placed the roses and with a broken voice said, Goodbye, Dad, thanks for everything. I promise I will make you proud, just look at me if. He also put up a picture of everyone as a family. Momo approached Izuku and hugged him comfortingly because she knew that Izuku was devastated. Kaken along with Jiraiya hugged the couple. Melissa and David also attended the funeral to say goodbye to the symbol of peace. Izuku, you guys go, I'll stay a little longer if. Momo, it's okay, love. She gave him a kiss on his cheek and they left him alone. As the minutes passed, everyone had left and the only one left standing was Izuku. I have noticed the presence of 5 more people at the place. This path led to them arriving at Shigaraki Tamura's grave as they had given him a proper burial. On his grave there was a phrase that said, In memory of the villain who gave his life to save humanity. In memory of Shigaraki Tamura. Izuku placed some roses on it. Those on the side of it were Toga, Twice, Kurojiri and Mr. Compress. Izuku, I feel sorry for you. Toga, are you going to catch us? Izuku, no. You guys were so helpful that I have no reason to do so. What will you do now, Toga? Will you still be a villain? Toga, I don't know. Izuku, I see. Registration for the UA will reopen next year. I'll wait for you there. It's a shame to waste your talent. After saying that, the freckled man left the place, leaving the members of the League of Villains alone. Dalby stood in front of his father's grave. This one placed a blue flame on one side of the grave saying, This flame will never go out, old man. So you will always be illuminated, Hero Endeavor. Goodbye, Dad. Chapter 44 End. The news spoke of a tragic battle that had claimed the lives of some heroes and of the fall of the symbol of peace. 3 days after what happened in the city center, many people were gathered together, as well as several heroes and the boys from the academy. Principal Nizu would say, "Good morning, I thank you all for being here. As you know, several heroes are no longer with us, a painful loss for all. That is why we will pay tribute to them for their courage and sacrifice for all of us." This gave the signal. Midnight and Empty Lady pulled a large curtain revealing a huge statue of the deceased heroes. All Might was in the middle and the other heroes to one side. There was a statue of the 3 students who had died. Everyone applauded because it was a worthy tribute to remember them. Izuku quietly said, "I hope you're watching this, Mineta. Now you have your own statue, my friend." Several people came to commemorate the statue in honor of the heroes. Momo tenderly held Izuku's hand. They just looked on with a smile as they saw several children approaching to see the statue. Time skip. 2 years had already passed, and we were on the last day of Class 3A. The boys were just 1 day away from graduating as professional heroes. These were already loved by the people because they had done great deeds saving many people. Izuku was considered the new symbol of peace. Kirishima, Bakugo, Izuku and Momo, the entire class, agreed to go out to eat together, to celebrate that this is our last day. "They're coming with us, right?" Bakugo was about to speak, but Jiraiya said, "Yes, Bakugo will come with us and Izuku and Momo too, right?" "Bakugo, don't answer for me." Jiraiya stared at him saying, "You said something, honey?" Bakugo, "Nothing." Kirishima just laughed out loud. In that moment, the professional hero Nijire Hato and the hero Lemillion would enter his classroom. He had a big smile. "Kirishima, Nijire and Mirio-senpai, what are you doing here?" Nijire, "Well, since tomorrow is your graduation, we want to invite you to eat out with us." Mirio, "Also, a certain person hasn't stopped asking about you." Behind Mirio came Eri, who threw herself into Izuku's arms with great happiness. Izuku caught her and carried her in his arms, saying, "You are really impatient, aren't you, Eri?" "Eri, I wanted to see you and Momo," he said, hugging her tenderly. Bakugo, "Tch, hey brat, aren't you going to say hello to me?" Eri separated from Momo and hugged Bakugo, saying, "Of course, Uncle Bakugo." The blonde carried her between his shoulders while showing her a big smile. The whole class came over to see little Eri. "Mirio, she's missed you both." Nijire, "Well, it's normal, she sees Izuku and Momo as her paternal and maternal figure, she is so tender." Mirio, "By the way, Izuku and Bakugo are going to join my agency, right? At least until you start your own agency." Izuku, "Of course, Mirio-senpai." Nijire, "And you, Momo, will come with me, right?" Momo, "I would be delighted, Nijire-senpai." Nijire, "Well, tell me when the wedding is." Momo and Izuku blushed slightly. The brunette replied, "Well, in 3 months." Nijire, "I see, I can't wait for that day to come." Izuku, "I hope so too," he said, looking at Momo. The brunette blushed as much as possible. Mirio, "Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go celebrate somewhere." The whole class screamed with excitement and started to leave. Izuku, "You guys go ahead, I'll catch up with you in a bit." Momo, "It's okay, love, don't take long." The brunette gave him a short kiss on the lips and left with the others. Izuku was left alone in the classroom and began to remember the old times. Looking out the window at the huge campus courtyard, his gaze landed on the place where he takes the first test with his teacher Isawa. He could only smile as I remembered that moment. After a few minutes, Izuku left the classroom and began to walk through the halls of the academy, when he collided with a certain blonde. Before it fell to the ground, Izuku caught it, saying, "I'm sorry, Toga-san was distracted." Toga just gave a smile and said, "It's okay, Izuku-senpai." Toga had decided to enter the UA, she had asserted herself, and had changed her way of being. She was in her 2nd year. "Toga, tomorrow you'll be a professional hero." The hero Deku no. The symbol of peace Deku, bearer of 8 quirks, wow, that sounds cooler, don't you think? Izuku, thank you for those words, Toga-san. I wish you luck and I hope to see you become a hero in the future. Toga, I won't rest until I graduate, you'll see. I hope to be able to work with you. Izuku, that's good talk, I also hope to work with you, Toga-san. Well, see you, the others must be waiting for me. The freckled boy gave him a warm smile and continued on his way out of the academy. As he was leaving campus, he received several messages on his phone. Izuku smiled when he saw who it was. It was none other than Melissa, who told him that tomorrow she and her father would be in Japan first to see him graduate as a hero, and she had already told him that she would be in charge of designing his new suit as the new symbol of peace. Izuku, wow, she sure looks excited. He responded saying that he would look forward to them. He has summarized his journey again, passing through the city center, seeing several children and some teenagers taking photos with the statues of the heroes. Along the way, several children asked to take a photo with him, since Izuku was famous as a hero. So much so that people admired him greatly. He was always happy to take photos with people. This one in the crowd saw Eli for a second, who looked at him with a tender smile. Izuku just opened his eyes wide when he saw her, but when he blinked she disappeared. He looked everywhere but couldn't find her. Without thinking about it anymore, he walked until he reached the cemetery with a large bouquet of roses, because he went every day without fail to see his friends, his mother, and his teachers. Their graves always had beautiful roses. Izuku, Mom, All Might, tomorrow I will finally be a hero. Finally my dream came true, Mom, Dad. Aizawa-sensei, thank you for everything you have done for me. He looked at the sky, which was cloudy, and began to remember several things, starting to put together some pieces of all his memories. Izuku closed his eyes, causing everything around him to stop. When he finished doing it, he smiled and said, Well then? You don't need me anymore. Right, Liz? Liz manifested herself in physical form by exiting Izuku's body. Liz, so you knew? Izuku, yes, you are not my quirk. You said that just to use my body as a vessel, isn't that true? I think it was to recover from something, or that's what I theorized. I guess you don't need me anymore. After all, this day will come sooner or later, won't it? Liz made a clock appear in her right eye, which occupied her entire ocular retina, while it began to levitate in the sky. From his back 2 large and beautiful wings emerged, making themselves present. Her clothing began to change into a beautiful armor of a bright white color. A kind of crown of bright white light appeared on her head. Izuku gave a slight smile, saying, I'm glad to see you again, Liz, or should I call you Eli? After saying that, her platinum hair began to turn into its light brown color. She just gave a slight smile as she looked at Izuku. Epilogue. Goodbye, Dad, was the last sentence I said to the person I admired most in the world. The hero who inspired my dream of becoming a great hero like him. I wanted to save people with a big smile. A smile that could bring peace to the people around me. Sometimes I wake up in the wee hours of the morning because of those events from my past that have been lost since the day I had lost people precious to me. Nana, are you there? Was the question I asked every time I saw myself surrounded by those memories that marked my skin and my soul. That simple question, it was silly to ask if she was there, because sometimes I just wanted to lie to myself, saying, maybe she will respond to my voice and maybe I can hug her again. Memories of the past attack me and I don't know how to defend myself from them. I thought I was over it, but I think I'll never get over it. I'll never be able to get the deaths of my friends out of my mind, the death of my mentor and hero All Might. The person I considered my father. Every time I wake up from my nightmares, I notice how my cheeks are wet with tears from my eyes. I can't help but look to my side. The pain calms down when I see my 2 reasons for continuing to live with me. Seeing Momo and my little Eri sleeping next to me like a family, I can't help but approach them to give them a kiss on their foreheads, to whisper in a low voice how much I love them. Momo has always been by my side. She changed my life in the most beautiful way possible. Yes, we had bad and good times, but I will never regret having chosen her as the woman I want to love for the rest of my life. It's funny, isn't it? That girl who listened to me when my mother passed away. In the end, she ended up getting into my heart to stay and not leave. I simply love her with all my heart, her and my little Eri, who has never left our side since we saved her with Mirio. According to what Nijier-senpai said, she sees us as her parents. I can't get out of my head that time when she told Momo, "I love you, Mom." When she said it for the first time, Momo's eyes crystallized, threatening to shed several tears. Her face was slightly flushed with happiness and excitement. Without thinking, she hugged her with all her strength because she loved her very much, and those simple words made her very happy. For these two, I would be willing to give my life to protect them. Their happiness is everything to me. 3 months had passed since the boys of Class 3A had graduated as professional heroes. Izuku and Kaken had entered the hero agency Lemillion until they can create their own hero agencies. We can see the green-haired man who was patrolling the streets in his hero suit. The freckled man was greeting the little children who approached him to ask for autographs and such things. One of the children asked him if he too could become a great hero like him. "It doesn't matter what kind of quirk you have, if you try hard you can be even better than me," was what Hero Deku responded with a big smile on his face. The little boy's face lit up with great happiness at the words of his number one hero. After that little moment, Izuku could hear his best friend's voice through the intercom he was wearing. "Hey Deku, did you notice anything strange among some of the people?" was the question he received from his partner. Izuku, "No, I haven't seen anything out of the ordinary. Catch on." Through the intercom the blonde was heard shouting as he said, "How many times have I told you to call me by my name, damn nerd hero?" Izuku, I'm sorry, I got used to calling you Kaken. I will correct my sentence. No, I haven't seen anything out of the ordinary at Ground Zero. Kaken, I see, you better hurry up, nerd. Your wedding will be in an hour, you must prepare for everything. I'm going to go change. I promised Jair that I wouldn't patrol much today. In addition, everyone will attend the wedding of the symbol of peace. Are you nervous, friend? Izuku, to tell the truth, I've been looking forward to this day. I wonder if Momo will be nervous. Well, I'll get ahead of myself. We'll see each other at the church, okay? Kaken, okay, understood. I'll tell Mirio that we're done for today. After saying this, they both cut the signal from their intercom and went to get ready. We can see a certain dark-haired girl looking at herself in the mirror in a beautiful dress. She was very blushing. Mina, Kaya. You look really beautiful, Momo. I bet Izuku won't be able to stop looking at you with how cute you are. The brunette blushed as much as possible. A certain orange-haired girl would say, Mina is right, you look really beautiful. I'm happy for your marriage. I couldn't contain my excitement. Momo, thank you girls for being by my side. Mina, you're kidding, we wouldn't miss this for any reason. The rest of the class has already confirmed that they will attend the wedding. Todoroki has been watching over you every day for your wedding. He and Tsuyu were the first to confirm their attendance. Momo, who would have imagined that those two would end up together? Kendo, but those two make a cute couple, don't you think? Mina, yes, you're right. Kendo, by the way, Mina, when are you and Kirishima getting married? The pink-haired girl blushed quite a bit at that question and said, We haven't set a date yet, but the day will come, too. She touched her belly and with a happy expression said, I haven't told him yet that he's going to be a dad. This news surprised the two people present, who were shocked, and without thinking they hugged their friend, congratulating her on the news. On the other hand, we can see in a large room a certain very beautiful sky blue girl with a beautiful dress levitating in the air while placing some beautiful decorations on some walls. Nijier, ready, everything is ready for Izuku and Momo's big wedding party. A certain blonde man was helping her. Mirio, I see you tried really hard, Nijier. I bet Izuku will be really happy about all this. Nijier with a big and beautiful smile replied. Yes, well, all for my Kohai, and he and Momo deserve it, they deserve to be happy, don't you think? Mirio, you're right. Well, we better go to the church, everything will start in a few minutes. Both friends set out towards their destination. In the great church of the city, several professional heroes, Director Nizu, and Izuku's friends were gathered. Everyone was waiting for the wedding couple, Little Eri was holding Kyuka's hand, who was wearing a beautiful dress. Next to them was Kaken in an elegant suit. Eri, Aunt Jairu, why aren't Mom and Dad here yet? Jairu, don't worry, Princess, I bet they're almost here. On the church seats were Tsuyu and Todoroki together. Tsuyu, I want to see you both already, Jero. I haven't seen them for a while, man. Todoroki, me too, love. Ida was outside the church looking at her watch while saying, but what unpunctuality on both of their parts. Uraraka, who was at his side, would say, calm down, love, I know you want to see them again. We haven't seen them since we went to live in another city. I bet they're about to arrive. At that point they saw a certain green-haired man getting out of a car wearing an elegant suit that made his muscles look a little tight. Izuku saw his friends and gave them a big smile in greeting. They entered because only the ebony was missing. The green-haired man was already at the altar. The godparents were Bakugo and Kendo. Everyone witnessed how the doors of the church opened wide, revealing the bride, who had a beautiful wedding dress. Izuku couldn't help but blush when he saw her, because the day had finally arrived when he would finally marry the woman he loved so much. David accompanied Momo by the arm. He led her to the altar where Momo and Izuku's gaze met, meeting each other like the first time they told each other their feelings. Kusahima was crying when he saw the couple. Mina hugged him while saying, Yeah, love, they're not married yet. Kirishima, I promised I wouldn't cry, but I can't help it, I'm so happy for them. The father began the wedding and they both said their vows until the moment that everyone was waiting to hear arrived. Father, Izuku Midoriya, do you accept Miss Momo as your wife? Do you promise to love her and respect her and be faithful to her? Be with her in sickness and in health until death do them part? Izuku, as he looked into his beloved's beautiful eyes, replied, I accept. The father asked the dark-haired girl the same question, and she answered the same. Izuku placed the wedding ring on her as the brunette did the same. Father, now I have declared you husband and wife, you may kiss the bride. Izuku slowly lifted the veil, seeing the brunette's eyes more clearly. He tenderly took her by the chin while giving her a passionate kiss. Everyone present applauded the new couple. Eri saw her uncle shed tears, so she asked, Uncle Bakugo, are you okay? Bakugo, yes, princess, it's just that. Jairu hugged him, saying, if you want to cry, just do it. No one will judge you for crying, after all he is your friend. It is normal that you cried to see him happy. The couple then went outside the church where they took photos with all their friends and teachers. Gran Torino was happy for his disciple because he had also helped him master the rest of the 2 quirks he had left. After they celebrated in a beautiful and elegant room on Nijire's property, everyone was happy for Momo's wedding with Izuku. A moment full of happiness and joy, Mina took the opportunity to congratulate the couple during the dinner party and to give those present the news that she was going to be a mother. This news surprised everyone, but they congratulated her for the great news. Kirishima was crying buckets of tears from happiness and excitement. He couldn't believe it. The happiness he was experiencing was indescribable, so much so that he couldn't find words to express that feeling. After that great day for both Izuku and Momo, they went on their honeymoon abroad. Eri had stayed together with Bakugo and Jairu. A week had passed and we can see the green-haired man and the dark-haired woman sleeping together. Their bodies were naked and covered by the sheets of their bed. Momo was sleeping on top of the freckled boy while he hugged her tenderly while caressing her hair. He whispered tenderly in her ear, I love you, my life. At that phrase, the brunette hugged him even more with a big smile on her face as she responded, I love you more, and you don't know how much. They gave each other a tender kiss on their lips. They were both undoubtedly happy on their honeymoon. 2 weeks had passed since they had both returned to Japan from their honeymoon. The green-haired boy summarized his life as the symbol of peace. He and his best friend were patrolling the streets. While they were talking until a question came up. Bakugo, it's a shame that Kaminari and the others couldn't be present at your wedding. I'm sure that wherever they are, they will be happy for you, my friend. Izuku, thanks, if sometimes I would like to see them one more time. Bakugo, without her all this would not have been possible. It's a shame that. Izuku, even if you don't believe it, she's alive. I can't tell you much since it's a secret, but Eli is alive. Bakugo was surprised by this news and was about to respond when a loud bang occurred in the sky. A large circle appeared above them. Bakugo and Izuku recognized it because it was the same color as the sphere in which he had previously trapped himself. From this several celestial rays fell, impacting on the city right in front of them, creating a huge explosion. On the streets, Izuku and Kaken at high speed put them to safety, moving them away from danger. Bakugo, TCH, what was that? Izuku had a serious look at that curtain of dust in front of them. A great air pressure dispersed all the dust, revealing a young man almost the same age as Izuku, perhaps a little older. This one had 6 pairs of white wings and golden armor that only covered his torso. On his arms he wore 2 gold bracelets. On her legs were golden boots, her eyes were a bright blue color, her hair was short and platinum colored. He raised his gaze to look Izuku straight in the eyes, and with a pressure-filled voice he said, "So I see that you are the human for whom my sister broke the sacred rules. Not just once, but twice." Izuku in his thoughts would say, "Sister? Are you talking about Eli?" Bakugo, who the hell are you, extra? That person replied, "I feel sorry for your human soul. I'll ask you just once, tell me. Where is Eli? I know that it activated its power to create realities in which you were involved. You know what I like most about all this is that I will have the pleasure of killing you again like I did in the past." Izuku, huh? Past? Bakugo watched as the people around him were unconscious. He asked Mirio for help through his intercom, but no one responded. Bakugo, damn, this is not to be taken lightly. He prepared himself with his explosions ready to attack, in which he had to dodge a golden ray. Bakugo, where did that attack come from? The person in front of him smiled slightly and said, "Wow, you don't recognize your own friend's technique." Bakugo and Izuku opened their eyes wide. That guy pointed to a specific building, seeing how on it was a certain blonde who was disintegrated in the battle against All for One. Izuku K. Kaminari? He could notice that behind that subject there were other people who were wearing black robes. They took a step forward, revealing their faces. Izuku couldn't say a single word when he saw them. Subject, well, it's time for you to assume that because of your mistake they died, and it's your turn to go with them, Izuku Midoriya. This time I'll kill you both at once. I'll kill you and Eli at once. And I will obtain his blessing that was given to him when he was born.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.